Hello, hello, and welcome back to Conversations with Coco. I'm your host, Coco. So, today we have a very important conversation that we need to have. So, I've invited some guests, and they'll be here with us shortly. But before we get on with our guest, I am going to be doing a short, hopefully short, because y'all know I'm long winded now. Y'all know I'll talk and talk and talk and talk, and it'll be a never ending cycle of me talking. So I am, let's see. Okay. So let me get my presentation queued up. So hopefully by the time I get through all my presentation, all of our lovely panelists will be up here with us. But let me go ahead and open my notes because you know I gotta be on the outline, honey. Okay, let me share the screen right quick
Hey, hey.
so y'all can see the presentation too. Make sure I take the volume off of the presentation that has no words, I mean, no sound to it. So, we are here to have a conversation amongst women about having realistic standards, boundaries, and expectations. Now, I made the presentations to keep me mostly on track and to get out the things that I wanted to lay the foundation with. So, let's get into it. So, we're going to be going over a brief introduction, why we're here and whatnot, definitions of what a standard is, what a boundary is, what an expectation is, and we're going to be fucking for real. Yes, love that for us. Prioritizing, giving some examples of what each of these things are and how to implement these things in your dating life. So, let's get into it. Like I said, I don't want to be too long winded and hold y'all too much. I feel like the conversation's going to be real juicy. So I want to get to that. Okay. So why are we here? We keep having these I'm going to limit the cussing today. I hope. I hope. But we keep having these low vibrational relationship conversations, especially on TikTok and here on this space as well. But we keep having these low vibrational conversations and we're not getting to actually anything of substance. Conversations don't move, they get caught in the tangential conversations, and now we're off in La La Land. We were supposed to be over here in Oz. We done went to the left. We supposed to go to the right. We have to get over it. We have to make some headway. And within those conversations, either online or in personal conversations, there is this kind of conflicting argument being had around Black women and their standards. Some people, like me, believe that the standards are not high enough and that we should have more and have higher standards. But for a lot of people, especially the men folk and the male identified Black women, they think that Black women's standards are too high. Today, we're going to talk about what is a realistic standard. So let's get to that. And then no one talks about implementing these standards, boundaries, or expectations. We talk about having them, but no one kind of breaks down, okay, what are these things? How do you put them into your dating world? How do you have them? How do you find them? Especially for the younger women. I mean, I would consider myself a young woman. I am 32 years old. But at 20 years old, y'all are saying, well, choose better, pick better, do okay, but you're not telling me how to do it. If you're not gonna tell me how to do it, don't tell me to do it because I'm just gonna think you're just saying things to say things and you don't really understand what's going on. Okay, for this conversation, what it is and what it ain't. So, what it is, it's gonna be us explaining what these things are, encouraging your self exploration, encouraging you to open up your options, encouraging you to be safe and to go with the things that align with you and your projected goal for your life. What it's not. This is not me telling you what your standards, boundaries, and expectations should be. I cannot make that decision for you. I don't know you. This is also not blind advice. If someone's going to give you blanket advice, they're probably not really invested in the longevity of your relationships and they're not actually invested in who you are as a person. This is not me telling you to lower your standards, boundaries, or expectations. Have them, let them be what they are, and implement them. Whew. I had to take a break. I thought I was talking really fast. Are we? Let me take a sip. Before I do that, I just found out on the YouTube I hit 350 subscribers. Thank God all my new subscribers. I fuck with y'all for real. If you are watching either on TikTok or on YouTube, you can follow me on YouTube. The link is in my bio if you're anywhere other than YouTube. If you're here on YouTube, you just hit subscribe. Easy enough. Okay, definitions. I took it to the dictionary because, sometimes we just need a good universal definition, a good starting point, and we can jump off from there. So, a standard, a level of quality or attainment, or an idea or thing used to measure a norm or model in comparative evaluations. What is a boundary? A line that marks a limit of an area, a dividing line, a limit of a subject or sphere of activity, an expectation, a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, a belief that someone will or should achieve something. Moving on. Here's where we get to the realism. How can we be realistic in implementing whatever our standards, boundaries, or expectations are? So, in order to be realistic, it has to be rooted in reality, but that reality is going to be different for every single person, right? And I think when we get to the conversation, I know probably someone's going to bring up this whole bus driver conversation, but that's where the whole reality for yourself looks different than it does for somebody else. Okay. And then also, you have to get to know yourself. How do you know what your standards are? How do you know what your boundaries are? How do you know what to expect out of a relationship if you don't know who you are or what you're asking for someone in a romantic or otherwise relationship with you? Because I'm a firm believer, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I feel if you have no standards or expectations or low expectations in your relationships, that's probably how you go about work and school and friendships. So, even though we're talking about it in the lane of romantic relationships, this translates to everything. Um, okay, prioritizing. So when you have these things, right, you have your standards that you're going to have for who you're with, you have your expectations. At some point, you're going to have to prioritize, and we're going to get to the next slide of why you prioritize. You're going to have to prioritize these things. I like to put them in 3 categories, which would be your non-negotiables, which are the things that like they have to have no matter what in order to be in a relationship with you. And that's an automatic deal breaker if they do not meet these things. Negotiables are, maybe I can communicate about it. Maybe I can see that, it's not a necessity, but, it's kind of important to me. So those are the things that are kind of like in the middle where you're going to like communicate over those things. They're not an automatic deal breaker, but based on how the relationship is going, how communications go, depending on where y'all land when y'all have these communications, it may or may not be a deal breaker. And then you're like to have something that you would like to have in your relationship, but if it's not there, the relationship wouldn't be lacking anything. Okay, so the 80-20 rule. Now, some people explain this the wrong way. I don't know what's going on, but the rule is in any given relationship, a person is only going to meet 80% of your needs, and they're going to not meet 20% of your needs because they're a human. I don't know if we all know this, but another person can't meet all of your needs. It's impossible. For you to think otherwise is completely irrational and unrealistic. So this is why we prioritize. So when you go through your standards, boundaries, and expectations, and you prioritize them, these are your non-negotiables, these are your negotiables, these are your like-to-haves, but they're not necessary. If someone's giving you all of your like-to-haves and your non-negotiables, but you're not getting any of your non-negotiables met, should be a no for you. But if they're meeting 90% of your non-negotiables, they're meeting 70% of your negotiables, and they have some of the things that you like to have, then that could be a great relationship for you. And my little last tidbit for this is that when you are not having that 20% met by that other person, you need to be filling that in for yourself. We can debate about that later. All right, so now is the time where I'm going to bring in the other people. I think we're still waiting on a couple people, but they'll probably trickle in. So I don't know if y'all who wants to go first. Make sure I can hear y'all because I don't know if my speaker is connected. So hold on, let me test this out. I don't think I can hear y'all. But go ahead and give it. And hold on. Let me see.
Ari, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ariel.
No, it's not. Hold on. See, technology.
Isn't
Okay,
it Rand?
I think I can hear y'all.
Okay.
Oh no, I can't. Okay, hold on.
AJ, wait, I'm on screen.
Okay, here we go. I can hear y'all now. Hey.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Hey.
All right. So who wants to go first? Introduction. Let us know who you is, where we can find you on the socials,
Junction.
any
What's
any projects y'all got going on right now, all that good stuff.
all right? If you guys like, I'll go first. Um, actually, you know what, Ariel, if you can go first, because I got a kid back here that's playing in the sink. Hold on a second.
Okay. Well, my name is Ariel or Ari, and you can find me on what is that? TikTok at Dear Red. I don't have anything out because I just finished a semester of doctoral school. Got me a nice little A, did right by myself. So I'll probably be putting out a little bit of content. Other than that, I'm just living my life, just serving my community as a career coach, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, I think you're one of my mutuals. I just don't think I've ever called you Ariel. So now I'm like, I know who Ariel is. That's too funny. Okay, you guys will have to forgive me a little bit. I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, but my name is Shella, aka Facts and Snacks. You can find me online, Facts and Snacks Official. I also have a legal firm that I'm a business partner in. I do contract and employment law, more specifically employment law. But because of where I'm located, I can't be giving legal advice, so don't ask. If we friends, I might give you a little something, but no, but you can catch me on there. I typically talk about, relationship stuff. I like to clown some of these wretched dudes, so that's always fun. Give a little bit of information on racial stuff. I'm always out here trying to call out can't forget about Kanye. Let's call them that because I don't want to say any cuss words on here too, but you know what I'm saying. So I like to pull in conversations about anti-Blackness. And I think that what this kind of is all encompassing. So I'm looking forward to getting going. I think our sis is playing with her dog.
Right.
He was on my notes. He had
Ah.
to move out the way.
Thank
All
you
right,
for having me.
y'all. So, absolutely. So, I guess before we get into the examples, are there any notes or anything that y'all would like to correct about the very rushed presentation that I gave?
I think you outlined it really well, and I like the colors.
I do
Those
too.
Thank you.
the definitions really work. But you know what? We will probably be talking about the bus driver situation, cause okay.
We can.
So I like
We
that you
will.
threw that.
We will get to that because I think that will be a very great conversation about, to me at least, around realism and yeah.
Yeah.
But is there anything that we need to go back to that y'all wanted to touch on, or do y'all want to give
Um,
examples of what y'all think of as standards, or what y'all think of as expectations or boundaries? We're gonna get to implementation. I got a whole slide for that about
okay.
like what you do when you have these things, like how when you date or whatever, how you go about,
Yeah.
implementing those things. But
If I can, excuse me, my God, I'm so hackety. You know what? I'd like to actually let me jump in about some boundary stuff and expectations, okay? Because on a personal level, I actually just got out of a relationship with somebody that was out of 2.5 years. Let's just say it was 2 years too long. I should have got out of there like 6 months. I should have
ooh,
ran. You know what I'm saying? And it actually didn't end well because unfortunately, while we were together, he was diagnosed with a personality disorder that over here, Miss thinks she's the hero. Okay. Thought that I was going to be
ooh,
able to put on my cape and save this man. And let me tell you, I got to run for my money. Got a whole run. And don't get me wrong, there was some really great things that were experienced, but the sadder part was that He had almost like an emotionally incestual relationship with his mom, heavy on the enmeshments, unethical behaviors, things that I kept moving the goalposts because I wanted to see him succeed. And it ended up in him actually getting me charged, which, what? So yeah, so like I said, so I learned some very valuable lessons, some things that I will take away with me forever. And part of those going back into boundaries and expectations, even for me, understanding that like when somebody shows you who they are, like you really got to believe people, because even if they have the best intentions, sometimes people's trauma is so strong that like there really isn't anything that you can do, because if they're not willing to get the work done for themselves, like you can't force them to do it, you can't make them do it. And sometimes even the best and well-intentioned people you got to leave behind. So
yeah, I will say, as someone that deals with the mental health things, when it comes to expectations, and this may be uncomfortable with some people, but if you are, because I don't know why I didn't think about this, that you may be in a relationship with someone that has mental health issues, even though I am the person with the mental health issues.
Same.
Maybe maybe it's probably why I didn't. Maybe it was me. I'm the problem. No, when you're in a relationship with someone that has maybe mental health things or trauma that they're going through, maybe your expectation is that they be actively getting help on those things.
absolutely.
And that's not too much to ask for. It's really not.
You know what's funny here, and you know what, just kind of echoing that, it's not even that it's an unrealistic expectation. I think where the misconception came in, and I'll just speak for myself, is that even when some people are doing the therapies, because this particular person was he taking in the therapy that he needed in the way that was going to help him? Because being present doesn't necessarily mean that he was able to take in the information. In fact, probably the biggest issue that I ignored was that he was going to get the help of walking back into the same environments that he came from that had the stronghold. So, like I said, I'm now realizing in my dating, especially when we're talking about dating as Black women in the Black community, somebody like myself who doesn't, date other races of men, for example. One thing that I have realized is that when there are psychological issues, brain disorders, things of that nature, they may, again, be very well intended. But if their environments are not changing and they're not able to separate, again, it may still be too big for them. So you may need them at a 7, but they can only get to a 5. Me sitting here trying to push this man to get to a 7 and then being upset that he can't move beyond 5, that's actually a me problem. Something that I wasn't able to see at the time. So that's where it then goes back to where you said standards. So, I mean, I think a lot of these things they cross over, right? And on a last note, I'll say, I feel like one of the bigger issues that some of us have is that when we hear men saying things, sometimes they're super offensive and we're addressing that. But I don't think some of us recognize that we are not supposed to be hearing to try to fix them. We're supposed to be hearing so we know what the hell to stay away from.
Please.
If that's what he's saying,
say it again, please. Say that shit again, please.
Yeah, like that to me is like, what, he's telling you something. This is not a chance where facts needs to now become a magician and try to turn a red flag into a yellow one. I need to go. So that's
heavy. Leave. Oh, okay. So I have a list of some examples, and I mean they're like broad topics, right? We all have had relationship experience. We live different lives. We live different places in the world. So I guess I'll just put out some things, and we can just discuss maybe some ideas of what standards, expectation boundaries could be. Maybe share your own if you have experience with it, and add a little bit of what is reality for different people in these things. So I'll do a softball. I'll do a softball underhand. Okay. What would actually be a softball on this list? Okay, a sense of humor. What say y'all about a sense of humor?
I don't mind a person being funny. What I do mind is if your funny puts me in danger, or your funny embarrasses me in front of people. or
Mm.
on
Mhm.
social media. I know I did a TikTok before where I saw a video of this couple and she had just did finger waves. And I guess she was letting them air dry. And he took a comb and ran that comb through her hair. And the only thing that I could think of is he would be dead. Done. Like, period. Call your mama, tell your mama you're going to her house, we're done. She's sitting here laughing, I just did it. And then people call me a hater, and I'm like, I'm not a hater because I'm married. So my husband doesn't disrespect me like that because we're not children. So I don't mind you being funny, but don't let your funny affect me. Don't touch me. Don't review it on anything. It's just you and I having a ha ha he he. Don't make me the butt of your joke.
See, I wasn't even thinking about that far because I was like, oh, you got to make me laugh. But that's a necessity. We got to be able to keep key together. But yeah, I wouldn't. To me, in my mind, I wouldn't even think about someone making me the butt of their joke or pranking me too far. Like for me, that's not something that I would even think about doing. So I guess for the person that I'm with, I would expect them to be considerate and to not laugh at the expense of me and to actually care about the the quality of relationship. It's like
Mm-hmm.
also like if you're doing all this, like, do you even like me for real?
Right.
Right. If I can ask, when you were asking examples of something about being funny, what specifically were you looking at? Just like if we should, like if we want guys who are funny,
Because
like
yeah,
our
I
partner.
want you to be funny.
Yeah, like anything like because these things are like different based off of different people. So
Okay.
some people may not put stock into a person having a sense of humor, or if they're a person that like doesn't take life too seriously, them having like a serious person like wouldn't gel with them.
Yeah.
So
So
just like I mean, they're all different. So I'm not sure like who like how much stock you put into the humor or what your expectations or where your boundaries are around those things.
right.
Because I
So
mean,
I
even like for me, I don't want people joking about like homeless people.
Right.
Like I don't think like that's something that I want to sit around and kiki about. Like that would give me the ick.
Right. So I want to say that, in terms of what Ari was saying, like I would agree. I've seen like cringe videos of couples. Like even that lady, that white woman who was married to that white man, and he was like, saying whatever at their wedding. Excuse me? Pardon me?
Ooh,
Like, whoa. Like, I mean,
ooh.
just cringe like that. I don't want that kind of funny. I actually have an uncle, and it's on my white side too. He's that level of funny. And I look at his wife sometimes and I'm like, how are you even with him? It's so weird. But
Like that man really got up in front of their parents and their grandparents with some churn talking about keep my stomach full and my sack empty. Like
right,
what?
like, yeah, no,
And you
no,
already do one of those very well. So we need to
Like
get you some cooking lessons. Like, whoa.
yeah, like there's heavy on the whoa, exactly. Because I think that where there are some people who know how to make certain jokes land, he was not one of them. And it just reeked of inappropriateness. And like I said, his wife is there trying to like laugh her way through this, but I'm sure somewhere in her, she felt horribly embarrassed. But in terms of the kind of guys that I do like guys who have some relative sense of humor. But again, I don't want the humor to even be like juvenile. Like I used to date this one guy, sexy as ever, but he used to always make jokes about like blue Smurfs, like about Smurfs, like, you know what I mean? And like, I just couldn't get behind it. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it was just kind of like it wasn't funny. But I also don't want somebody who is so serious that it's over militant, but I think I would prefer somebody more serious than completely not serious. Because one thing I will tell you is I've dated guys who don't take things seriously, and I just find that like nothing bothers them. They don't care about anything. And then it's just kind of like, why are you even in a relationship? Like you look like you just want to go and count rainbows. So go count rainbows. You know what I mean? Go count the gold on the end of the rainbow. Whatever you want to do, leave me alone.
see, and this is a great example because I feel like even though that may be a small thing, this is a point of compatibility that you have to think about. Because what if the person only likes dad jokes and those are like only corny to you, and then they get mad you never touch your jokes, and then it's like a relationship problem. I don't know.
Right.
Okay, so let's dip our toe. Dip toe. Okay, what are our thoughts around these three things when it comes to family values and family planning?
Oh,
Ooh.
sorry. What three things are we talking about? Sorry.
Standards, boundaries, expectations.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna go on the out here and say that I've recently changed my feelings on family, including my own. Okay. I love my dad. I love my brother too, but I had to cut my brother off. And then because I cut him off, I threw all the rest of them out too. Because I was like, you know what? Y'all two in this together. And you know what? I need my peace and sanity. So the reality is that, sometimes you have to be relative, in my opinion, when you're thinking about who in your family is in your space like that, that you want to be part of certain things, and like who has to have that hard line where even if you see them and say hi, goodbye, they're not coming around. And I'm just gonna throw this out here. I'm not dating anybody anymore that has an ain't shit relationship with their mama. Okay, because some mothers have, like I said, these incestual relationships with their, especially with their damn sons, and you cannot work with that. So unless he's willing to put a hard line and tell his mama to stay out his business, like I said, I don't even want her anywhere in my vicinity. And if that's a problem for him, like at this point, I won't actually date a man whose mom doesn't know how to mind her business. Okay. So I'm just going to throw it out here that I think that, yes, expectations and standards and things of boundaries have to be implemented. And I often hear stories of women finding that it's the mothers, the monsters in law, they even call them, that sometimes do not respect certain standards from them and then continue to violate boundaries. Because guess what? People who have these enmeshments with their parents, sometimes that has been lasting for so long that they don't even know how to enforce boundaries. So, again, I'm just saying that in what we would like to think is a proper family standard with values, that those people would respect whatever it is that you say, even if they disagree. But I don't think that that's always realistic. And so at that point, I feel like if they can't respect your boundaries, then honestly, you step outside the circle and that's where you stay. I'm gonna leave it out there and let maybe Ariel have a piece in here.
So when I think about expectations, it all starts at the beginning, right? So if we're saying that we're going to be exclusive, then we need to already lay that foundation down of what I should be expecting from you and what you should be expecting from me in a sense of family. I know that like now I'm kind of like borderline because I've been married for 5 years with no kids. And I'm like, do I really want to add a child? Because we've been able to just up and go and do whatever we want to do. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I still want to be somebody's mama. But I wouldn't have been with my husband if he didn't want kids. It is just something that was a definite, like, we're not negotiating that. I don't care how much I love you. I've always seen myself as being somebody's mama. And if you can't see yourself as being a father, I don't want to put that on you. And then now you have animosity, not only towards myself, but towards the child that we created. So I don't need that in my life. And a child doesn't need that in their lives. Boundaries coming from a person that is married. It is very important that your parents, your family, as well as their parents and their family understand that you are now a new family and you're the first family. Don't tell me what your brother used to do when he was 5. I don't care. Your brother is a grown man now. So what he did at 5 is not what he's doing, at 40. Like you don't say that. And also don't expect for us to drop what we're doing to help you with something because that's taken away from our family. Like, is a conversation needs to be had before we're like moving money around and doing stuff like that because it's not okay. It's not okay. It's something that we can work on. I wouldn't say that it's a hard like, oh, I gotta get out, but we'll have to break that habit because again, when you marry someone, now this is legally your family. And your brothers and your sisters and your moms and your dads, cannot come into the hospital and tell you as the spouse what to do with your significant other. So it's like they have to learn, like, okay, you're now the extended family to this new nucleus. And it's okay. Like, we'll still come and let's divide holidays. Like, I had to work on that with my husband. We can't go to your family's house for both Thanksgiving and Christmas because I have a mama too. So we're gonna pick one and we're gonna go there, or we're dividing the time in that particular holiday and say, okay, we're gonna spend 2 hours over here and 2 hours over there. And at first, his sister didn't like it because my mother-in-law passed before we got married. So my sister-in-law is kind of like the mother-in-law by default. So she kind of got upset, and I was like telling him, remind your sister that you're not her child. And you're not her husband. We get to go where we want to go. And if she doesn't like it, she doesn't like it. Because one year I protest and we didn't do any holidays with anybody's family. And my family was good with it. Do you? But his was a little, and I didn't care.
Right.
And they learned to get used to it. So that's all I have to say about that.
I will say, my family's the crazy one, but I do expect that if we are in a relationship and we have set out what we are going to do as a couple, I expect that if you need to check your family about some stuff, you're going to check your family about some stuff. Because we're going to leave that right there. But I will say, for me personally, in the family planning vein, I have a certain standard I want my children to live to. I have certain things that I would want them to experience, be it in utero, be it with a doula or whatever that is, be it, a night nurse, a nanny.
Ooh.
We both went to private school, so I expect that of my children, that they would go to private school. So being on the same page about that and being realistic about that and planning out the timelines for those things are things that I would expect to do with my partner. Definitely having some boundaries. Like, I'm not going to be disrespected because you think it's okay for you to be disrespected. We're not doing that. So even if I got to pop in and take over that role of saying, you will not disrespect me, I'll do that. Luckily with my wife, we have not had those issues. But I'm not going to be disrespected just because you don't have any boundaries with your family.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I think for me, because I was raised by a man, and again, I'm not saying that I know this for everybody's family, but I found that the way my dad handled, men that I would bring home or, that I would date, or when I'm still legally married, but like, I don't consider him my husband anymore. So, the bottom line is that my dad didn't get involved in my situations unless I asked him to, or he felt like it was necessary, which typically it was never really necessary. Where it's very different, like in the relationships that I've had with men and their moms, I haven't had every mother, in fact, I've actually been good with a lot of their mothers, but the ones that haven't been good, again, were mothers who typically relied on their sons to be their emotional support for whatever reason. Maybe their mother was a narcissist person, maybe they had their own mental health or personality disorders or brain disorders, whatever it might be, but there was heavy on the helicopter mom. So it became a situation where the expectation for him in the relationship was, I can be with you, but if my mom calls, I have to run. And it's kind of like, what? And again, it's not something that people vocalize. It was things that you would just notice over time. And like I said, it in situations like that, the mothers often push very hard to remove any woman on the other side that she sees as a threat. And that also, like I said, becomes a problem because I'm a dominant type of woman. So I very easily can, give people the impression that I'm going to take their son away from them. It's weird. And, there can't be any type of mutual respect because let's go to the other part of it. My particular age right now, many of those women that are the mothers are boomers. You know what I'm saying? So like they don't have the same type of mentality. A lot of them kind of feel like, first of all, when it comes to men, we're supposed to serve them. So I'll give an example. We were in Jamaica and his father was down in Jamaica visiting at one point, and that we had to meet him at the airport to give him something. So when me and his dad were there talking, he went to go get something and then he came back and, we left. 7 months later, he tells me, yeah, my dad doesn't really like you. And I was like, what did I do to your dad? I've only met the man once. I talked to him for 5 minutes. He said, oh, well, he didn't like the fact that I had to carry all your stuff. So when he told my mom that, she had a problem. I said, carry all the stuff? You had a backpack and a suitcase. And he was like, yeah, we felt like, we should have split it up. Things like that I'm just like, my dad would never say that to me though. Like my father would never even fix his mouth to be like, why? Because my dad would understand that if he sees me carrying something, then there must have been an arrangement between me and the other person. So if he's got a question, he's going to ask a question, but he's not going to be like, well, I don't like that person because this is what they made you do. But like I said, when you're raised in that type of environment, even as an adult, if you haven't done the work to unlearn that, that's all you literally know. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say, I've just started realizing that my expectation has to be known right from the beginning. And I have to do a lot of vetting to get some of those answers, because sometimes it ends up being too late. And then once it's too late, we're in that mind frame where we don't know how to get out of here now. Because it's not as easy as just being like, well, I'm just leaving. Sometimes people have kids, they've got finances wrapped up, maybe they're married. So there's all these different things that sometimes then makes somebody want to stay, even though everything in them is telling them to go. So it's kind of what I feel like about that.
I think that's a little we have a little tangent or add in. How do y'all feel about roles within the homes? I'm a little different. I'm not married to a man, so I I don't. What say y'all? Like, do y'all expect to have traditional roles, or are y'all more
let the heteros handle this question?
Okay, I'm gonna take second on this, Ari. You go first, sis.
As the married woman, I let my husband cook for me, and my husband cooks. My husband cooks. My husband is so thoughtful about my mental health that he kind of like took over washing clothes. But I put him up. So we do have that. Some of these betas may think that my husband is a simp, but I pay bills and stuff, and he pay bills, and if my car broke down, he'll pay to get it fixed. Like, I don't believe in all of that. I should be the one that works 40 hours a week and come home and cook. And then if it doesn't happen, then we're going to yell at each other. Because if my husband comes home after a long day's of work and he's like, I brought some chicken from the grocery store, I'm not going to sit here and tell him, why did you buy chicken from the grocery store? You should have cooked something. I don't want that. No, we're going to eat that chicken from the grocery store and call it a day. And that's about it. I take my husband out on dates just as well as he takes me out on dates. It's all about compromising. People don't understand. They're so busy trying to quote a Bible that they barely read that they think that the right way is a woman is supposed to be doing all of these chores and the man is just supposed to go and work and then come home, sit on his butt, occasionally have sex with you, and then that's it. No, a marriage is a partnership, regardless of who you're married to. If they're not willing to give and take, then there's an issue.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me tell you guys that. So in my marriage, he actually did the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry. I'll be honest with you, in the 6.5 years that we were together out of the 12 we were married, I didn't really have to do like any of that stuff. That wasn't my role in the house. My role in the house was to obviously birth the baby. You know what I'm saying? Which I'm just going to be very honest. Anytime there is a marriage where the birther, okay, is the primary parent in the home, like whoever is working is responsible for the finances primarily. Like I'm never going to leave off that. So if the birther, regardless of their gender, you know, is having the child and they're going to obviously primarily be responsible for the child and the other person is working, to me, it doesn't even matter the gender. It matters the fact that after the birther has had time to kind of get their body to bounce back, then one or the other can go and do it, but somebody has to be more of the financial, you know, let's call it breadwinner in that way, because again, these are specific roles that have to be done. I don't think the gender matters. But in my case, he went to work, he did all the heavy lifting, he did the cooking, the cleaning, and the laundry primarily. And then my job again was to take care of, we have a child with special needs, so I had to take care of all of that. I did all of the legwork when it came to coordinating anything as far as physical exams, football, basketball, you know, any of the sports related stuff, brain power, accounting, that was all me. You know what I'm saying? And then I was also building my business. Now, some people have been like, oh, well, you know, you had such a great husband. Why did you leave? Well, because he was a sexual abuser. I'm not going to just keep him around while he's continuing to do that, especially when he deviated and harmed somebody else. Okay. Which is a very different situation than when you're married and people convince you that marital rape is okay. You sometimes fall into very negative patterns and think that if it's directed at you, then maybe it's a term and condition. That's something I've had to work through. But when it happened to someone else, okay, that's when I realized, like, okay, this can't go on anymore. So all of those other luxuries when my marriage ended went out the door. So I've had to hire people to now do those things. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that I do not believe that everything needs to be about gender. That all said, one thing that my husband did and my boys do is the heavy lifting. I don't have to do any of that. And yes, part of it is because they're male. You know what I'm saying? But that's not necessarily why I do, but they don't seem to mind. And it's one of the things that I do tell them, because like males biologically, are physically stronger. I feel like if my sons are dating a woman, especially if she is not as strong as him, if it's not a problem for him to do the heavy lifting, then just do it. But that doesn't mean, you know, it's because I'm a man. It's just kind of like, you know what, if it's something that you don't mind and it's something you're capable of doing, you're strong, then just get it done. And again, if she feels like she likes to cook and that's okay with her, cool. But if she doesn't want to cook, it shouldn't be something like, oh, well, you know, like because you're a woman, get in the kitchen. Nah. If at the end of the day, and I actually heard this, and I don't know if you guys did, but somebody on TikTok said the reason why men don't give a shit about women making money is because even when she's making money, he still ends up having to pay for everything anyway. So my whole thing is, okay, well, if you're going to take care of everything anyway, then just let her use some of her money to put towards somebody to cook and clean. Then what's your problem? She could allocate her money there. Some women would rather pay that and go to school, or, you know what I'm saying, go to work. So I say all that to say that I don't believe that there should be specific gender roles, but I think if people agree on them in their household, that is also fine, so long as it's not being done in a way to subjugate and be oppressive.
But when you bring, first off, hey y'all.
Hey.
Sorry I'm late.
Before you start, you gotta say what your name is, or where we can find you on socials, and any other thing that's happening right now.
Okay. Hey everybody. My name is Amanda on social media. I am Ms. Anlin Diva 87. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and all the other special socials. I have a podcast currently, Miss Diva's Podcast, streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And these three ladies, these are the homies. And I love all of them. They all bring excellent things to the table and are very strong, educated Black women. And I'm glad to be a part of the space.
Thanks, Amanda.
I said it all with one breath, y'all.
So we were just going over some examples of like broad categories and getting each of our thoughts on if there's any standards, boundaries, or expectations you believe are around them. So I guess now we're talking about family values and family planning. If you have any standards, boundaries, or expectations around those things, what they are, how to make them realistic.
I just turned 36 in January and realized that what I believed or what I thought was standards was not that. It was me accepting BS and thinking that because I desired at the time to be a spouse, that I was supposed to just handle things. Like Fax was saying, where it was an understanding between her and her partner at the time that certain things were done. I don't even think I had that in mind. I think my mindset at a certain point in time was, well, he got a good job and he loved his mama and he loved Jesus. He got to be a good man. It was never an allocated type thing, because I essentially by myself did all of the things that maintained Amanda by herself. Like, what I mean is, I was in a relationship off and on for years. I don't think he's ever paid a bill of mine. I don't think he's ever paid any of my upkeep, like hair, nails, or whatever. He's never taken my vehicle and serviced my vehicle, but he loved Jesus and he loved his mama and he kept that job as long as I knew him. And so I don't even know in hindsight how it would have looked to be in a partnership with that person or a marriage with that individual, because I don't think I've ever had that conversation with anybody I've dated. Like, what would it look like if we were together? It was, oh my God, we want to get married. Oh my God, we love each other. Oh my God, after we say I do, I get pregnant on the honeymoon. And then that way we announce my pregnancy on your birthday the next year. Like, those were my mindsets. So like having those dialogues, like that little cute boy that be on Ace's podcast talking about what you bring to the table, the little cute one, the earring. Whenever he says something about bringing something to the table, and I'm like, if you can throw out there, you could pay for a maid, you could pay for a chef. Why aren't y'all paying for maid, chefs, and intercourse? It's always some type of negotiable when it comes down you not wanting to pay for intercourse, but you threaten a woman to pay with everything else. I agree with Facts. At a certain point in time, if I was in a position to finance somebody to cook, clean, and fold this laundry, then that's what I would do. I would pay Miss Ma'am or Mr. Sir to go do those things and say thank you and make sure they have a nice snack pack when they leave so that their mouth ain't dry on their way home. Like, if you can financially afford to help delegate some of your tasks, I don't understand why some individuals feel like, oh, well, it's a woman's job. Like, that's weird to me. Even my grandmother had, both grandmas actually had 9 children apiece. And I don't ever recall my mother or my father in their childhood talking about everything was on grandma. Like, there was always some type of support with everything. Everything wasn't all on her. So it makes me wonder, like, the I was about to say men, um, the individuals who feel that way, like, what ideology are they pulling from? Because even they grandmas at a certain point had some type of support. They had some type of help. It wasn't all the time always on them, especially if Big Mama had multiple children, like, things were delegated. And so now it's just like, oh, y'all are so lazy. Where did you history will tell you Black women ain't never been lazy, but it's just like, y'all not reading either. So it just depends on the individual. Me personally, I don't know what a relationship would look like for me moving forward, because it's like, hey sis, I got a limp now. So we got to pay somebody to help. We got to pay somebody to help delegate some of these tasks. And if you don't want to do that, then I can help pay somebody by my damn self and live peacefully free and have my child happy and healthy. Like, it has to be some type of communicative thing. And most of those individuals who feel that way don't even know how to communicate outside of hitting their chest and yell that they're from the He-Man Woman Haters Club and women are expected to do this.
Right. Good
So I
stuff.
think, to put it in the let me intellectualize. So what I'm hearing is there is an expectation that whoever you're in a relationship with contribute to the household physically.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a standard of communication where we're openly communicating, adequately communicating get to a point where we have the division of those tasks.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And I think absent to me, like, I'm just gonna throw this out here. It's probably an unpopular opinion, but I think when we actually break it down to biology, I don't think humans we're really supposed to rely on males for anything more than their sperm and their protection. So the reality is, I think Black women de facto are matriarchal. And because of that, I think part of the reason why they're so hated by not only just the men in our community who feel very threatened by us, but all of the other communities, especially like white women, is because, again, being that we are the closest to what looks like the matriarch that humans should have, I think sometimes people are angry that Black women do possess a certain level of strength and dominance because they're a lot more self-assured that, you know what, at the end of the day, if things don't work out with me and that person, I might be hurt, but I'll still be okay. I honestly think that Black women literally operate like that. And I don't necessarily, like my white aunts, if they don't have a man, but they'll just crumble into pieces and just not exist. They honestly, they embody their whole identity in having to have a man by their side to, you know, protect them from, you know, all of the people who hurt their feelings. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, Black women, and I'm sure we've heard it. It's almost like sometimes, yeah, we want soft lives, or we want to not have to feel strong all the time. But I mean, I think that the strength that a lot of us possess is not a negative. I think it's viewed as negative because people see that strength as masculine so much to the point that they believe women are not supposed to possess it. But I gotta be honest, if I could, me personally, opt out of, or sorry, make a decision whether I want to be in a family dynamic with a man, me as the wife, 2 kids and a picket fence, or be in a matriarch with 3 kids from 3 different baby daddies because the matriarch doesn't care who your baby daddy is, I'd honestly take being with a bunch of sisters. Because honestly, I feel like I could trust y'all more, my kids. Okay? To make sure that I can get a break. If I need to work, somebody's there taking care of them, making sure they fed it and, you know, are well, you know, and their well-being is good. There's usually a few head leaders, you know what I'm saying, that help to make things oriented. And like, honestly, we're fine. So I'm just saying, like, if I had to pick, I'd rather raise my kids with women than raise my kid with one man who's supposed to be the dictator. And he don't even have leadership skills, but I'm just supposed to believe him because he got a penis. Sorry, like I said, I have a hard time with this conversation for those reasons, but I get it.
Well, let me use
Thank
this as
God that we are
example.
on YouTube and not on TikTok.
Oh no, they would have shut us down.
They would have came up in this bitch.
Oh my God, Facts. Do you
Listen.
understand how flooded the comment section would be full of men that are mad that you are sitting here saying all of these things? When you opened your mouth, I was like, yep.
I already knew.
There it is. You took
I know
let's have the tangent of conversation, right? Because listen, I said this a couple of weeks ago where I was like, Black women are living in the world white women are trying so hard to get to. That's what this whole feminist music movement is. If we either gotta do 2 things, because us as a group are actually fighting for patriarchy. I'm not sure if we understand that, but we're fighting for patriarchy. So it's like we're fighting for patriarchy, but in reality, we have been surviving and existing in the absence of lots of men.
Correct.
Right? So we begrudgingly are heads of households or the sole provider, sole custodian parent. But we do it to a point where we're complaining about it and we're waiting for the men to resume their rightful place in the traditional hierarchy. And I'm like, what if we actually really was like, you know what? We've been doing it for hundreds of years this way, right? We are the leaders. We are the ones that make things happen. So how about we fully step into that and create our environments that lead to that? Because if we are focusing on let's get us to our best place to be, and if we do need to recreate villages, we will probably have to do that with a whole bunch of women anyway. Why not just do it like by choice?
I actually
stand 10 toes down and like actually take the reins and make it an actual vision of what we could actually do. Because right now we're just like, okay, I'll do it, I guess. Okay, I'll do it, I guess. Okay, I'll do it, I guess. But what if it's like, you know what? We are the leaders. Get behind us, and we're going this way. What would actually happen when we have? Because I'm with the communes. Put us on some land. Make us all some houses. and let's raise the kids together. Honestly.
I have to agree. And let me just say this, and you guys feel free to jump in at any point. But my whole thing is when you really break it down to the nitty gritty and you look at matriarchal like species outside, elephants being one of them, you know, orcas being one of them. Even when you look at something like kangaroos, for example, like literally just studying that alone. Do you know that kangaroo females, I'm going to use females, you know, they actually like, they always got one in the hatch. So they're always pregnant. Okay. So once they, you know, now they usually have a female joey first. And the reason why is because those female joeys never leave their mothers. It doesn't happen. They raise the children, the offspring. And then once the offspring males are at their maturity age, they leave. That's it. They go. And you know what the male kangaroos do? They're the ones that protect, you know, and that's why you see them like big and stocky. Their job is to protect, you know, that, let's call it a harem of these females that are birthing, because in order for birthers to be able to continue birthing into that existence, they need to be protected. So when I hear Black men, and I'm not saying it's not Black men all the time, but let's just use them as an example. When I hear them talk about, oh, all these single mothers without baby daddies and da 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 da, part of me is like, well, you know what? When Black women stop wanting to have children because you're not doing your job, you guys complain about that. And then what happens is white men in positions of power do things like overturn Roe v. Wade because they need population, because they cannot sustain capitalism unless people are making babies. We can also not continue to fuel existence in humanity if people are not having babies. So the problem isn't marriage or lack thereof, because everybody has different value systems. I'm more interested in a marriage that can actually work because, like Ari pointed out, it's a partnership. It is a commitment. It is supposed to be ethical. I would take, like me not being married and being around a bunch of people that I know can help me and I can help them and they can help my children, etc., than to take some man that, like I said, every time I feel like I don't want to have sex, I get told, well, I had to cheat on you because you ain't giving me no sex. Like all of these very like, for what though? Because other than you being able to protect me, which let's be realistic in this society, most of the protection is not coming from them anyway. Like not, you know what I'm saying, physical protection. A lot of times it's them who we have to protect ourselves from. Right. If I'm not even having kids anymore, what the hell do I need you for? I'm not even trying to be rude. I'm just being like realistic. What do I actually need you for? So therefore, if I'm choosing you, it's because I want you here. And if me not wanting you is enough, then like I said, what purpose do I have even dating at this point? Because I don't think I'm ever going to need a man, the way that he wants me to need him. It's not going to happen. I might want him, but I'll never need him the way he wants me to need him. So it is what it is.
Because they have needs and wants mixed up. Yeah. A need is something that you cannot live without. We have been living, like until I got married, I have been living without a man. And I made it until I got married. And I didn't get married until I was 30. So with that being said, it's safe to say I could do it for another 30 years. I wanted to be married because I desired the love that he was giving me. And he desired the love that I was giving him. It made sense. But it wasn't because, oh, I need him. I need my husband. Because if I'm stranded somewhere, I know how to swipe a card to get me wherever I need to get to. I'm not calling him to say, what should I do? That's a need. And that's what they want. And that's not how that's going to happen.
But look at Sierra. Look at Sierra and Russell. Sierra didn't need Future the same way technically she doesn't need Russell. But she wants her husband the way that her husband wants her. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are angry that Black women are not suffering without them. And then say, how dare you have the audacity to say you don't want us? That's why you're going to die alone. And I don't know who was in that video with me where they were like this, the cat lady crew. And I was like, oh my God, we welcome dog ladies and fish ladies too. Y'all are all welcome. Like, I can't remember where that is on my page. They are angry. I use Sierra and Russell as a point of conversation all the time. They are mad that that girl is not suffering. They are upset that Daddy Future did not break her down. And they are look, she's with that simp. if that means a man that loves and respects his wife and loves the child that she brought into the relationship, including the ones that he also made with her, then I won't Russell.
Yeah. Okay. And let's expand on that for a minute. When you start understanding some of the dynamics, what Black men, and we're going to speak specifically to them in this context for a moment, because there's an imposition of power in the male dynamic racially. We know this. And also when it comes to economic. So I find that typically Black women lean left in terms of politics and lean left in terms of their gender because of where we kind of sit. With Black men, they might lean left for their politics in terms of Blackness, but they definitely lean right with the system of patriarchy. But because they can't pierce that top veil, the anger that they have, they honestly believe, like the ones that think like that honestly believe that the reason why white men are where they are is because of white women supporting them. They think that Chinese men are where they are because of Chinese women.
Look, as someone who used to minor in history and sat through 3/4 of English history, that's not how that happened.
Exactly, right? So because Black men that think like that sincerely believe that Black women not essentially saying like, treat me like a slave, please, daddy, that they're being denied power that they have.
I'm sorry. Use on the road, my bad.
Right?
Did they ever hear a Black woman say out of her mouth, treat me like a slave, daddy?
Right.
I will snatch her by her hair.
But that's what they think. And if you've ever heard them, why they're angry about interracial relationships that they engage in is because they actually think that when Black women are dating white men, they think that that's what's happening, that Black women are suddenly submissive. And that's not true either. And I'm going to say this. If people would stop for a second to really study the dynamics, typically the Black women that are in relationships with white men, those white men are usually not right-leaning white men. They're usually left-leaning or center moderates. So that type of personality with him is usually kind of silent, because I'm going to be very real, me being biracial as well. Sometimes the issue that happens with Black women in interracial relationships is that even though she might have the softer life because he has maybe more finances to offer, a lot of times Black men don't realize that some of those white men still give her the labor in terms of racist stuff. So let's say when their biracial child is being called the N-word, it's not their dad that goes to the school, it's their mom that's still doing that work. So it's a lot of assumptions being made on part of Black men, assuming that these things exist, and they're so angry about it that we've even heard some of them be like, we should unalive them. Like, what?
The craziest thing. It was we talking about the part when you said Black women that get with white men and all of a sudden they become submissive. But I have in my face seen very quiet, very docile, very submissive Black women be with Black men and still get dogged out. I know somebody personally, if she ever see this YouTube, I don't care if she get mad, I tell her business or not, because she's not gonna fight me. But I literally watched this person, and I only know this individual because her now husband is somebody I was involved with in high school. And when they got married, I was like, okay, she's little and cute and not none of his type at all, but maybe he loves her. Right? Okay, cool. I befriended the little
Girl,
girl.
why I got somebody in my own head like that too? Why? No, why?
It's always one in every. It's always one.
Listen, that girl tried to fight everybody in the county. Do you hear me? You cleaned up the living room. That's great, sweetie. I'll be downstairs in a minute. Thank you. He cleaned up the living room, y'all. So I remember like partying and clubbing with this person. I mean, she done birthed maybe about 3 kids at this point in time. And I don't know if she realized that she married Community Peen. Clearly she did not. Okay. And I don't know how many girls had beef with me because I was friends with her. And I was trying to tell her, like, look, either you gonna stay with this man or you gonna leave this man. But I'm not helping you fight every heifer in this county. I'm not doing it because you know that he is around handing out penis like Snicker bars. So you need to just like either accept it or not.
One of my standards is you can't be community anything.
That part.
Even if we non-monogamous, you ain't finna be slinging nothing from here, there, and everywhere.
Look, she stood beside him. She stood beside him. She's still standing beside him. And the crazy part about it is like she got online and was like, we're celebrating 12 years of marriage. Girl, everybody done judged you. Everybody done laughed at you. Hell, as your friend, I had to stop like talking to her at a certain point. Because like if you run up to the door of one more hood apartment over a girl that then smashed your husband, like I'm gonna need you to chill. Because at a certain point in our friendship, when we were friends, I had to ask her, I said, you do know that before you came in the picture, I smashed him too. He is an equal opportunity penis giver. You need to accept that. And if you need to get you a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a dog or all three, I'm nobody to judge you. But if he gonna be giving out, maybe you should be doing the same. You need to like, she was very submissive, very quiet, took care of the house, also had a job, and she did all the things that they say they want, and he still shared his penis to everybody. So what is that? Where is that getting anybody?
Right. I want to actually mention something. So I recently learned that logic is persuasive, but emotions is what moves us. And I think sometimes we misunderstand that because a lot of times people think, oh, well, in order to make something happen, like you have to be logical. But it's like, no, because we're humans and both of these things exist for us. So what essentially happens is that right there is her operating from trauma. Submission is trauma. And that's one thing, like dominance is actually inherent to biological males. That's inherent because it's part of why they are physically the way they are built. Again, their job is to protect birthers. But submission is not inherent to females, to, women. It's not. So essentially, you have to break people down. And a lot of times that breaking down happens when they're children. It's woundedness that goes. And I learned recently, even for myself, that sometimes us hanging on to relationships in our mind, we're thinking, I'm hanging on because I love him. But actually, that's not why we're usually hanging on. A lot of times we stay hanging on to these relationships because there's some benefit in there for us. Like for me, the benefit for me was having access to him all the time so that I had somebody to travel with and never feel alone. I couldn't come to that on my own, though, when I was in the relationship, because like I said, I was so consumed trying to meet his needs. So now a person like that, though, she clearly doesn't she's in a bit of a survival mode through her trauma where she thinks like, if I'm not with him, like nobody else is going to want me. And that probably has to do with him beating her down emotionally behind the scenes, because guys like that always emotionally beat down a woman because they want them to be this big. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to say one other thing. I find that the difference again with Black men in our community versus like when we see some of the white men that date Black women. And don't get me wrong, I'm not promoting interracial relationships. I'm just saying like
we should be promoting interracial relationships. Go ahead.
Yeah, but no, I mean, again, I would disagree, but that's fine. But what I'm saying is that when you see the clear difference in the Black community, when you look at men who come across very strong, the very attractive men that feel very self-confident, once again, many of them are referred to as alphas, but it's not the same as an alpha white male. Like when we look at alpha white males and we look at alpha Black males, like Black men want to aspire to be like that, but they don't realize, again, Black women are not turned on by alpha white males. Alpha white males are Donald Trump. We don't want to date Donald Trump. We don't want guys like that. But here's the sad part. Moderate Black men typically have low self-esteem. They might not always be financially broken, but a lot of times they're mentally broken. Many of them suffer with suicidal ideations. Many of them, again, are still living the rejection that they had 16 years ago in high school. They're still stuck weird place because what if we realize, my friends, men date to impress other men. So when you are a man and you don't feel like you meet those benchmarks, guess what? When you end up dating a woman, you can't even come to the table and have that reciprocation that we're looking for because you are so stuck in your head about how you feel inadequate to yourself. And that is the reason why a lot of times Black women, because we have been nurtured to and essentially socialized to be caregivers, what we try to do is go to those Black men that unfortunately are not able to get out of the stance that they're in because we're not their therapists, but we try to therapize them, thinking that if we give them this, that's going to help. And I say all that to say, Amanda, the sad part is that even if you sat there and told your girlfriend all of the logical things known to men, she's never gonna leave until she hits that rock bottom, which is gonna come from how she feels. She has to feel more fear staying with him than she has to feel leaving him. That's the sad part. You cannot get that person to go before that. And I've realized that now for myself. It's
My
sad, but it's
mama
a
was
reality,
a firm
right?
believer of that same sentiment facts. If they're not ready to leave, they're not going to leave.
Well, I
So
learned
you
later.
can't even talk to them
I
because until their
learned,
focus is on
yeah.
leaving, they're not going to leave.
Well,
Yeah, sad.
I learned later from I found out like her family, there's like a lot of like half sisters, stepsisters, like different people that you wouldn't know that like all of these women are related through, I guess, the dad. And I found out later that her mom, out of like, I guess the other baby mamas, her mom was always the one that always went back, always took the heat, always took the drama, and would always try to fight the other women type thing. When the other girls would just be like, I think I'm just going to move on with my life. She was the stick beside you, baby mama. And that kind of flowed down to her daughter who stayed in that situation and is still currently in that situation. And y'all are right. She's there because she wanted to be. But I think that like the ending of our what I considered friendship had to do more with the fact that I was just like, hey yo, you can't be fighting everybody. If you gonna stick beside him while he handing everything down, you can't be like dragging your friends and your sisters and everybody into your fights, but you going home and getting in bed with that man every night. Like it just it looks it's not fair to the people who care about you. And we're not saying nothing because you're choosing to still be there, but it's like I'm not about to fight Linda, Tisha, Yolanda, and Keisha. I'm not doing it because them four
Right.
women get access to your husband that they shouldn't have, and that's because of your husband. And so I agree 100% with y'all. It's just even when Black women are submissive, it's still not resulting. It's not giving Black family, Black love
Right.
the way they want to produce the narrative. It's not giving the hashtag Black love like they sold us in the 90s. Like that's just not what's happening.
Look, I'm here to help y'all not get swindled. So let's go on, take a sidestep to implementation. We're gonna come back to some examples because I think that was a good segue into for y'all that are figuring out y'all stuff or want to be in relationships. How do you actually implement these things? So I got some steps here. Y'all can add steps. So I said you have to set them right. I would say write these things down. Um, they change, they ebb and flow as you grow, as things change. Like, the same things that I had at the beginning of my marriage are not the same things that I have now. So things change, write them down, add to the list, take some things off, move some things around. I will still say, when you have these things in your three categories, go ahead and break them down into like your non-negotiables, your negotiables, and your like to have. So I'll say, at the top, with your columns, put your standards, boundaries, expectations. On the left side, have your three rows of your non-negotiables, negotiables, and what like to have, and have those things ready. Those things I would say lead to you building discernment, right? So if you're a person that, you're not looking for a long-term relationship, you might just be looking for hookups, friendly benefits. So when you're talking to people, like I don't know if you're on the socials or at parties or whatever, you know what you're looking for. So if the person starts to talk and you start realizing you're not on the same page, you got to get the fuck out of there. Like, right. So, and date with intention. I said that to say, have your questions. If you are a woman that wants to be married and looking for a serious relationship, you need to be having conversations that will lead to putting y'all on the same page. You need to ask about finances, ask about family, ask about, where y'all like to travel. Those things are important. So have your questions and date with intention. When you gotta move around, you gotta say, thank you next. I love this. I don't know if y'all follow Shit Talker on TikTok, but I love her so much. She had a live the other week. I think it was like maybe last week. She was saying that she was dating this guy and I guess he had wanted to make plans with her on a certain day, but he kind of went ghost. And then the day popped, it was like, hey, are we still on for our plans? It's just, I haven't heard from you. You haven't said nothing. You haven't checked in. You haven't told me what the plans are, what time. Now, she didn't say any of these things to him. She texted him back, I'm no longer interested. Thank you. Some of y'all hoes be explaining too much to these motherfuckers about why the fuck you moving around. I see a lot, I don't know if it's just me. I see a lot of TikToks about like first dates going awry, the swiping apps thing not going right, and how you texted him an hour before the day and 30 minutes before the day and 3 minutes before the day. If we have plans, and we said we are meeting on Saturday at 6 p.m. at this place, and I do not hear from you on Saturday before 1 p.m., I'm going to assume that we're not going. Me personally, I'm just gonna block you and move around, move about my day. But some of y'all be like, hey, I haven't heard from you. Are you ghosting me right now? Hey, I haven't heard from you. Are we still on for our plans? Hey, why are you talking? If this person isn't showing up the way you need them to show up on that day, that's a sign. That's not your person. That's just me. I don't know about y'all.
I think that's a really good point because I think I've been there before. Okay. And I want to just throw this out here very quickly.
I don't know what happened to
Amanda. Okay. Hopefully she comes back. I know that there's bigger conversations that happen around dating, but I also think that not enough times do we have conversations with plus size women and check in with them about how they're feeling in dating, given that we have a unique experience as well within, right? And so, you know, for a plus size woman, I'll just use me. I had a stance at one point in time that I wasn't going to do coffee dates. I actually did a TikTok on it. And I had another sister who, you know, did a very polite and nice, challenging video. I didn't really think about it at the time. But then after I left my last partner and I started, or, you know, the most recent partner, and I went to therapy. Well, I was already going to therapy, but we started talking about more in-depth things. What I started realizing was that I was actually feeling very insecure because I was worried about, you know, again, if I show up to this date and then this person doesn't like how I look, let's say, for example, and then they decide not to talk to me, I feel like I probably would have been more comfortable had I figured out they didn't like me in the talking stages, because now I've invested something in here. I didn't realize that it was me who was actually internalizing this. And so since having that conversation and then learning to love myself a little bit more and to kind of turn it inward and feel a little bit more empowered in my plus sizedness, I have a different thought now. So what I want to say on that note is that sometimes in these situations, the reason that people, and not just plus size people, but a woman in that situation may react that way is because, again, like, she's getting triggered from past traumas that she hasn't resolved yet. So she doesn't even have the strength within herself to even stop doing that, because, again, she's not even noticing that what she's doing is essentially kind of overstepping and not having firm ground in the fact that if he's not calling by this time, then this is what it is. So in doing that, one thing that I've had to learn is I've had to literally, like, even say to myself, like you said, write it down. Okay, if this person doesn't call by this, you're going to be okay with this. And if you're not okay with it, how are you going to deal with it? By not texting that guy and just blocking him and moving along. Sometimes we have to learn to self-soothe. Because if you're dealing with trauma of somebody abandoning you and you've had enough of those situations happening, it's really not just easy. I'm not saying that your suggestions aren't good, but sometimes it's just not that easy for some people. So I think we have to also, in addition to these wonderful tips, is to also work on ourselves. Because a lot of this has to come with how we value ourselves and what we think we are to people, rather than us letting other people judge what they think of us, which is, let's just be real. Sometimes the reason why people write dissertations in their goodbye text is they don't want to look like the bad person.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I will say for me, right, I'm a big girl. Hey. I guess this actually comes from my abandonment issues. I have the abandonment issues of, like, my daddy left me, so now I'm a whore. I didn't get those abandonment issues of now, like, I'm afraid of losing people. For me, I think I kind of rebel and say, I dare you to leave. Bye. You want a reason for you to leave? I'll give you several. So I think for me, that's kind of me jumping out. But even and then also I kind of feel like I was that rare big girl that never had an issue with being a bigger girl. So when it comes to like my physical appearance, I understood society didn't like me, but I didn't internalize that, if that makes sense. And so for me, in my mind, what I'm like, because I've been ghosted, like it hasn't happened a lot, but it's happened in my younger years when I was dating. And for me, it was like, you gonna stand me up? Me. Okay. But as I grew, I added on to that. If someone is going to treat me that way, they don't value my time. They don't value communicating with me.
Right.
They don't value being considerate. So if you're going to do that to me the day of, you're not worth my time. No matter what I look like, no matter what you look like, no matter where we're going, I don't care if you're taking me to Benihana and picking me up in your Bentley. If you cannot respect my time, you're not worth my time. So maybe I should add some context and stuff, but because if you have a standard of how you want to be courted, like the whole coffee date thing, I mean, we'll talk about this on the Patreon because I still do date, but I am married, right? Coffee, I'm not doing coffee with nobody. I'm just not. So if that's what I have deemed as my standard of dating, then I need to be on the lookout for the person that's going to meet that standard instead of A, trying to make them meet that standard, or B, lowering myself to meet that other person's standard, or C, expect that every single person around me meet that standard. If I'm meeting someone on an app or out in the world and I'm talking to them, we're trying to set up a date and they're trying to take me to get some ice cream, and I'm like, that's not the kind of date that I want to go on, even though I don't want to seem like the bad person, I think we also need to get a stop out of the need of feeling like I have to explain why this is my standard. Why can't we just say I'm no longer interested? Now, of course, if someone asks like, "Hey, I have a question," like, "Why?" Okay, have a conversation if that's something you want to communicate over. This was my second point: was communicate when necessary, right? If you have your non-negotiables or your deal breakers for everybody, you shouldn't be communicating about that. Like that's just what it is. But for if you're saying that your dating standard is a negotiable or would like to have, like, oh, I would love to have, a date at a restaurant with a 6-course meal. But if I don't, I'm not gonna die. Those are the times where you actually talk to that person and get on the same page. But if you have a certain standard for yourself that you're like, this is where I want to be, and we can segue into the bus driver conversation after this. So if this is where I want to be for my life, then I don't need to explain that to anybody.
Right.
And I think we as women, we always want to explain to like soften the blow, but it's like men don't. So
Yeah,
why
it's
should
been
we?
plenty of times. It's been plenty of times when I was an undergrad and they thought because I had my own place and stuff like that, that like anytime would be a good time to hang around her. And I used to say, I don't date on school days. And they were like, what? How old are you? You're a grown woman. I am in school. That is
And
my
it's like,
number one
yes,
priority.
I am a grown woman. Exactly. Precisely.
And I don't date on school dates. Okay? I have things to do, money to make, a degree to be had. And it's not for you. I don't even know if I'm gonna talk to you next week.
Right, right.
So why would I waste my time and see you on a Monday and stay up late knowing that I have to not only go to school on that following day at 9:30, then I have to turn around once I get out of class and book it to work so then I can stay up until midnight at that job. No, you're not that important right now. If you can't see me on the weekend, then I guess it wasn't meant to be. I'm sorry. And a
Right.
lot of times, like Fact said, a lot of times they think when you are a bigger girl that you're just going to just drool all over them when they say, I
And
want to
ain't.
see you right then and there. I don't care. I had a guy that asked me to sneak into his grandparents' house as adults, not teenagers, as adults through a window. And I told him I wouldn't, I am too big physically and chronologically to be sneaking in a window to do anything with you.
Right.
And he said out of his mouth, there will be tons of women that will want to. I said, so let's go
Well,
ahead and
let
end this
them do
conversation
it.
right now so you can get that. And then when I hung up, he's texting like, oh, I was saying that because I was angry and I was trying to you can't get a rise out of me because there's more of you out there.
Right.
I will say also, so someone says or asks, requests something that may be, something that you don't like. So say someone says, hey, are you available on Tuesday? Now you could be like R and be like, no, I don't go out on Tuesdays. So if you're not comfortable just turning them down, you could say, I'm not available on Tuesday. How do you feel about Friday? Some of you girlies aren't comfortable just, bucking, but there's different ways you can go about figuring out if that person is either can accommodate you, or because that could also be a thing that you're looking for. If we have schedule conflicts, how do you handle that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I think for Ari, and I just want to use your example there for a minute, I like the fact that you were remaining firm, because I'm going to be the first person to tell you, I haven't always been good with setting boundaries and enforcing them. So I typically like to defer to women who, or, the sisters and stuff like that, who seem to have a pretty decent grasp on it, because I like to pay attention to, again, how they do something like that, because it's me. I never have a problem being direct or assertive. I typically end up being one of those people that says something, and then because the reaction of the person on the other side is not what I wanted, then I delve into ruminating on how could I have said that 1,000 different ways different so that this was not the reaction on the other end. That typically ends up triggering my anxiety. So just to get back to one of the reasons I personally decided that I will now start to allow some people to coffee date with me. There's a TikToker named Anwar. Okay. I don't know if any of you've heard of him. I believe he's a gay Black man. And typically I don't listen to any man try to mansplain things to me, but he actually has a very good model. And I actually stand behind a lot of the things that he said. And he's even somebody who broke down some of the reasons why, practical wise, some Black women would want to date out. And even though, again, I'm not somebody who kind of pushes towards that, I understand why. And I like the way that he did it to kind of explain some of the benefits, right? In terms of, again, not so much race wise, but the benefits sometimes in like class, the class matching. And so I say all that to say, when I started realizing that, I have been going on dates with men, and yes, I would get there and we'd have a dinner, but then I'm sitting there with them for an hour, and some of these guys can't keep conversations. Okay. They cannot. Or sometimes when they say something hella inappropriate, I've literally had to end dates and then pay for the date that I already thought coming in that I wasn't going to have to pay for, but I always got my money, right? But the last thing that really made me stand out was I spoke to this man, and it's going to go back to something I said earlier. He told me, if I go on a date with a woman, if she's pretty, I'll pay for it. But if I get there and I don't find her attractive, we're going Dutch. So I asked this man, do you tell women that before you go on this date with them? He said he doesn't. So I said, okay, so you're a coward, right? And he said, oh, well, that's not a fair statement. I said, it is a fair statement, because you have a principle that you abide by, and you're afraid to put that down as your boundary, okay? And what you want to do is you want to try to capsize once you're there and make a decision on this person's looks, rather than just saying, hey, just want to let you know right off hop, if I get there and I don't find you attractive, but you better have some money. You know what I'm saying? You might as well just say it.
You may as well.
And give her the opportunity to stay at home or come on a date.
But they don't want to give that choice. They don't want to give that choice or say that, because they know it makes them look like a creep if they say it out loud.
Exactly.
I had that same conversation with a mutual of mine who stood up a girl, and I lit in on his behind. I was like, no, sir. I was like, did you really, like, he didn't even go in the restaurant. He saw this girl from the outside and was like, I can't believe my humble hooked me up with somebody that looked like that. And he went home. I aired him out. I said, first of all, I said the minimum you could have did was went in there, had a conversation, had one drink, and say, hey, you know, just personally, I just don't think this is going to work, and I don't want to waste your time. And I don't know why. It must be because the scrotum dropped, that the common sense must have went with it. But he literally just never went in. It was like he stood that girl completely up. And it's just like, you know, if you say it a certain type of way, that women are not going to pay you any mind. And see, they also want to take away the option for the woman to choose, because they know that most women are not going to choose them if you show up the jackass that we all know that you are. Like, that's crazy.
And sorry, I just wanted to finish the last piece back to Ari.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, because I know you dropped out. But what I was saying is that when Ari turned around and told this guy, like, hey, I don't date outside of the weekend because I'm in school. I find it interesting that her placing that reasonable boundary, men don't respect women when they give boundaries. They always try to negotiate our boundaries with us by making us feel some type of way. So he was trying to make Ari feel insecure about her adulthood and her ability, because he's like, oh, what are you, a child? He's trying to insult her. That's exactly what he was trying to do. Because guess what? Women have been socialized to take these digs that men give as we're doing something wrong. And then what we do is we move the goalposts. So anyway, I just wanted to share here that I feel that in a situation where somebody like Ari had put that down, the fact that he tried to negotiate it, I find that often happens. And like I said, women, sometimes we buckle because we really want to go on a date with this guy that we're already starting a pattern. You know?
But why? Why? I'm sorry. To me, that gives me the ick. It turns me off. That we adults. So you mean I can't make the rules for myself that I'm living by, and I have to succumb to you because we're adults? Like, do men not understand how that sounds? I'm telling you no for something, and you're gonna say, "But we're adults." Okay, that's why I'm saying no. Like,
their problem is they want to control the environment and control the situation. And yeah, y'all are adults, but he expects you, female adult, to listen to what he has to say, male adult. Like he uses the adult thing as a way to manipulate and gaslight the situation. But when he's gaslighting it, it's he's an adult. It's not gaslighting. But if you set a boundary, you're childish. That doesn't make sense. It's another way of manipulation.
If I'm not letting my father gaslight me anymore, I damn sure ain't gonna let no man gaslight me. Like, that's just, it is what it is. Like, I felt like I had to with my father because that was my father. And when I realized I didn't have to, all the rest of y'all follow suit. Like, it just goes.
Like, look, if my daddy could get banished, surely you can go back straight to hell. I really don't care.
Not about to deal with that. Like, no, I'm not going. You're not taking me to Ruby Tuesday on Wednesday because we get half off of appetizers. I'm not going. I don't care.
Yep.
I love a good appetizer.
Now listen, okay, before we get into this bus driver conversation, because I have an issue with how and when the question was asked. We are gonna have an in-depth conversation on my Patreon page, probably on Wednesday, because Thursday my mama and my granddaddy come. So we'll figure it out. We're gonna have a realistic conversation about what it means to open up options, and I mean like the full spectrum of conversation. So if y'all would like to join, there is a link in my bio for Patreon. I'll probably put some reminder up or whatever. I'll probably make the first episode public anyway, just to get some traction. But we're gonna talk about opening up the options, and when I mean opening. I know the swirlers say that opening means dating white men, but I'm talking about the rooter to the tutor. Some of y'all need to be single. Some of y'all are emotionally unavailable. Some of y'all are gay and hide in the closet. Some of y'all don't need no relationship because you need some therapy. Some of y'all need to take a vow of celibacy. So we're gonna talk about all of that. All of it.
Yeah.
But I need to be able to smack y'all verbally, and you know the community guidelines on all the apps are kind of too tight for that. So I'm gonna act reckless on Patreon. But yeah, so this whole bus driver conversation.
I'm gonna let y'all go first.
I don't even know where to begin with this.
I'm gonna let y'all go
because
first.
I feel like Iyanla kind of told on herself with her explanation about how she feels that our community is in a position to have, for Black women to have high expectations or standards for living when it comes to Black men's. People are upset that a lawyer with her own television, I mean, her own show on the Grio, would think that it's not compatible to date a bus driver. People are upset about that. I don't even know we have the time to even go into the Breakfast Club interview with DJ Envy turning the fuck up. So wherever y'all would like to start, whatever comments y'all would like to
say. Why people still keep going on that show? First off, didn't you cheat on your wife? Charlamagne, didn't you say you're a wife? Who are you to give any advice on what somebody else should be doing? I'm just saying.
So my confusion initially came with the question in its original packaging. And I mean, I guess I can share. I don't know why, but my first of all, my MacBook died this week. So that's sad. So I'm on my Chromebook by itself right now. Let me see. And for whatever reason on the Chromebook, it won't let me touch Zoom if I'm screen sharing and audio. So I don't know what's going on, but let me put this on the screen. It'll be just this little clip right here. Can I make this bigger? Probably not.
That the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
if
a bus
he owns
driver?
the bus? If he owns
No.
it. If he owns the bus.
See, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. Okay. Because the standards and requisites, and I'm not talking about him laying on his sofa playing video games all day. I'm not talking about that. But the standards and the criteria that we use to measure men is off for who we are as women and who they are in this society.
When some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
if
a bus
he owns
driver?
the bus?
I'm
if
just
he owns
wondering.
it. Owns the bus,
See, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Why
That's
was
a
that the
problem.
question?
Because the
To what you just said.
standards and requisites, and I'm not talking about him laying on his sofa playing video games all day. I'm not talking about that. But the standards and the criteria that we use to measure men is off for who we
Am
are.
I tripping to feel like it was
and who they
premature and
are
stupid
in
to
this
ask that
society.
question based off of what Ebony said at the end of that sentence? Because I'm not a lawyer.
See, that was my initial problem. The response to the question that was asked didn't make fucking sense.
Okay.
But if you listen to what she had said at the end there, what she said was our standards and our requirements are off for where we are as a community. Okay. Why is that my problem?
Sorry, guys. Dropped out. Okay, did I miss anything?
Did you see the clip or did you miss it?
I did miss the clips.
Okay, let me share it again.
Okay, thank you.
We gotta do this over again because y'all gotta hear this.
Okay, because I just want to let you guys know that I have some opposing opinions that I'll share. Ebony, okay.
Some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? You. Would you date a
If he
bus
owns
driver?
the bus, if he owns
No.
it, if he owns the bus,
See, that's a
Iyanla.
problem. That's a problem. That's a problem
Okay.
because the standards and requisites, and I'm not talking about him laying on his sofa playing video games all day. I'm not talking about
Mm-hmm.
that. But the standards and the criteria that we use to measure men is off for who
Mm.
we are as women and who they are in this society.
When
Okay.
some of us, quite frankly,
Okay. So I want to say that is her name Iyanla or Ayanla? Because
Okay, at this point.
I've been trying to say Iyanla and losing my whole entire life when I do it. Anyway, I want to say that I don't necessarily disagree with her. Okay. And I'm gonna explain why, because I've been thinking about this for like the last 4 days since I've seen it. Number one, Ebony, I feel like notwithstanding what Iyanla said, she is a woman with her own money. She's a beautiful woman. And I feel like her deciding not to be with somebody who doesn't own the bus is perfectly fine. I think it's fine. I think some of the problem comes in is that, and this is where I do think Iyanla is being accurate. Number one, not everybody's Ebony. And the reality is that if you are a woman who is dating for the purposes of being with a man who makes more money than you, and you are not somebody who makes that type of money, somewhere equivalent or even more, then you are upholding patriarchy because you are literally going to seek out somebody who is making more money than you. And then what happens is in return, that type of mentality from that man, he automatically thinks because he's the financial provider that he has that leverage over you. So the reality of it is that if I'm a woman who makes my own money and I want a man who has money, that's fine. Because like I said, we going into this in a situation where I'm bringing in mine, you bringing in yours. And if you want to spend a little extra on me, it's cool. And we can get our securities together. But there is a difference between being a woman with money and being willing to accept a man who's actually good, who is actually stable, okay? Versus me coming in with not having any money and feeling like I need to go and find a man who's making money. That is a patriarchal thing. So the reality of it is that not everybody's going to be able to be Ebony.
I agree with that, but I don't think that's the conversation being had. Because I agree with that, right? Because it is, for me at least, it is unrealistic to ask a woman with her own money and education to date down, right? I'm also a firm believer that everyone should date within their tax bracket. I think it would make life a lot easier for a lot of people. I even said on TikTok the other day that, like, for my position, I grew up in the suburbs, private school, certain economic status. I'm currently maintaining that and growing above that. But for my unique position, I also had access to people that had a lot more money than I did. And even with them, if I got with a trust fund baby, we're not compatible. Like, that wouldn't make sense for me in my life either. And that's just on like a non-dollar amount, just upbringing and how you go about things. We're not compatible, right? I think the conversation being had, that I think we kind of have the conversation, but we don't actually talk about it with what it actually really is. For American Black women, we're growing in our economic statuses and education, all those things. People usually ask the women that are climbing the socioeconomic ladder that have means to date men that are hypergamous. And I feel, this is a feeling emotion of my observations, that Black men are mad that certain women are saying, no, you have to have something that I have. You have to meet me where I am. And like she said when she geared up the question, there's a community disconnect that we have. The women are growing and advancing at a rate that our men aren't. And so for a woman asking this question of a certain status, it's like, yeah, I can't, and especially, I mean, I don't know about her. She was engaged to a white man. So when she did bring in the color spectrum, which I'm like, first of all, you asked her about Black men's, and she didn't ask you about Black men. She asked you about men. So that was my thing too. Like, you're answering from a community, you're assuming she's talking about black men, which I guess it can be a good or a bad thing if you want to call it that. But when it comes down to it, there is a growing group of black women, and it's how it's actually been since the plantation, that are out earning or being the head of household or the breadwinner. And she basically said, I want someone that's equally yoked to me on a financial, social, economic level. Because I think the other part that people are not getting is that, yes, a bus driver, if they've been at a bus company for however long, could be making the dollar amount that you want. But there is a difference between being a white collar person and a blue collar person. So there's different levels of compatibility that I see in this conversation. And I'm upset that the question wasn't answered. Because what do black women that are in this certain arena who are not partnered, who want to be coupled with a man, usually a black man, what are they supposed to do if they want someone that's on par with them?
Right.
And that can provide and protect them at their level, if not a little bit more. I don't even think black women are even asking for hypergamy, really. It's just, if I have 3 degrees and I make 6 figures, I would expect that you at least have a degree and make 6 figures. Why should I, as a person with these degrees, making this amount of money, have this status, date someone down just to say that I have a man?
Okay.
And that's what it was giving to me.
Right. And no, and I think that that's fair. So let me, if I can, let's expand on this a bit, right? Because there are different layers in this conversation. It reminds me, and not saying that I think she's a Kevin Samuels, but it reminds me of Kevin Samuels in this sense, that there's several people that were watching that interaction who aren't part of her group. But then sometimes when you have somebody that's not part of the group talking to a bunch of people, when you have somebody who's in a specific group talking to a bunch of people who are not part of that group, then sometimes what happens is there's kind of a crossover. So I think where people are feeling that again, this whole uneven standard is because I have often heard some women in our community that are not at that position saying things like, well, I need a man that has money. I'm not dating no man with no money. And I'm like, but you don't, no disrespect, says you ain't got money either like that. Not to say that because you don't have money, you're not a valid person. And I'm not saying that.
I would agree with that, right? But that goes back to the point of black women are arguing for patriarchy.
No, and that's what I'm agreeing with.
Like us sitting right here, we can understand that patriarchy hurts us all. Yes. And that I would rather be in partnership with someone than be above or below them. But us as black women in the greater sense, even those of us that have the money and the means to say, you know what, if I had a stay-at-home dad and I could take care of us both, I would love that. They don't want that. And black men are fighting for patriarchy too. So that's also kind of like, for me, a confusion point of like, the men are saying they want to be patriarchs. But when the women say we want a patriarch and we want what it looks like to be an actual patriarch, not just in thought or idea or title, I want a man that's going to provide and protect, which, I mean, I think we all agree that's not fucking enough. It's not enough. Right. Provide what? Protect what? But it's like we're having these it's confusing for me because, again, I'm an observer, right? We're having these conversations on a daily basis, especially on TikTok, arguing past each other, fighting for the same thing. But when a woman says that it's like the men can say it, but the woman can't say it. I'm confused.
Right. So if I could just like expand on that. So like I said, the layers in the conversation are similar to this. If somebody was to ask me, somebody who does have her own money, what would you prefer to date? Somebody based on their money, somebody based on race, or if it came down to this person's character, okay? The reality of it is that I'm going to want to choose somebody on character because at the end of the day, even though I would prefer to be with somebody that's a race, and I'm just going to say I'd probably end up being alone, but in terms of those kinds of things, there is this sliding scale that sometimes exists where people like women are complaining that they keep going out with men that are not giving them the character they want. So they can find sometimes the men that has the money they want, but they don't have the character. So then what happens is some of those black men are like, well, I've got the character. You remember these guys are like, I'm a good guy. Like they live on, I'm a good guy, and so.
They're actually not.
I know, right? But the reality is that then they kind of feel like, okay, maybe I don't make the money that you're looking for, but if I can give you the personality that you're looking for, why are you excluding me? That's what I think ends up happening. And I think that happened with, like I said, the Kevin Samuels thing, where some women were like, okay, we want to compete in capitalism. I don't even think women necessarily realize that they're upholding patriarchy, but they see that they're competing in capitalism. But the reality is that men don't want that because, again, they don't want to compete with women. They want women to go and find their roles and do them and let us do the competing because that's what our role is. This is who we are. And this is how we measure and judge each other. So I say all of that to say, I think in that conversation, even though you're right, she was not talking about a race, but she's literally having a conversation with somebody who actually believes in race loyalty. She's having a conversation with an old school woman who's coming from that mentality. So to me, that conversation couldn't properly achieve what needed to be because the audience wasn't right for Ebony. Ebony needs to, you know what I'm saying? Like people that need to follow Ebony and take that, like you said, are the Black women that are having some concerns, trying to find the men that they would like to date that are already, like you said, I think you said equally yoked. Okay.
We love that in the Black American community. We love the term equally yoked. We love it.
Yeah. I think that's what you said. But once again, and I'm gonna even go I'm gonna move into my biracialness. One of the irritating things that I find is when I hear, and again, it's not all Black women, but like the Black women who are like, I date out exclusively. It's disturbing to me for a few reasons, because number one, not every Black woman is going to be able to find that type of white man. Because white men that you're dating are not going to date the Black women that have a few children, that maybe live in areas that they refer to as the hood, you know, and guess what? When she finds that white man for her, he's likely living in the hood too. You know what I'm saying? So guess what? He's going to give her the same type of life that likely the Black man that we're trying to stay away from, let's say, is going to give her. You know why? Because class matters. Class matters. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, these conversations end up being layered. So in my opinion, I think that Ebony was right with her statement. She's speaking for herself. And she's also speaking for a lot of Black women that are in her, you know, in her wheelhouse. But the issue is that some of the people talking are people that are not up to Ebony's standards, and then don't realize that then they start echoing these sentiments. And I think that's what ends up being a bit of, I don't want to call it a trigger, but I think it's just one of those things that even for me, when I was watching it, I'm like, if lower, like let's say Black women of a little bit lower money, like, do you not see how unrealistic it is for you to say you wouldn't date a bus driver when at the end of the day, if the bus driver comes with a good paycheck, stability, and treats you well, like, why are you trying to aspire to find something more than that when you're not even there yourself? And what if that person has all of the other check marks in your boxes?
And I think that was I think that to me is, issue number one. We like to engage in conversations that are not for us. Because even I couldn't find the fuller clip, but even in the fuller clip, because the reason why she brought her on this show anyway was because she had made a comment on the Breakfast Club about how Black women in general are too much in their masculine because we go out and obtain and have money and we leave with our degrees and blah 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 blah. And she was like, I was triggered by you saying that.
Off of the back of Oprah Winfrey. Like, why do we keep listening to people who has done the same thing that they're telling you not to do?
That's also the question that I had, right? Because like, they're both attorneys. So it wasn't like they're two women coming from completely different backgrounds. She was saying, for me, I'm triggered because I have dated, I have been engaged, I've been looking for this patriarchal manly figure that is on par with me financially, economically, and in character. And so if I'm not seeing that when I'm growing out, what am I supposed to do? And her answer was, would you date a bus driver?
Right. Now, okay. Now,
like, what?
Let's talk about Oprah for a minute.
I think for me, Iyanla made it a multi-class issue when it never had to be.
Right. No, I agree with you on that. And you know what? She's also from the old school. So, you know, like, let's just be real. A lot of the women that are from the old school did believe that, you know, again, and kind of actually what you said earlier, I think some of them were like, okay, you know what? This is our responsibility. So instead of them fighting back, they just actually accepted, like, okay, fine, we're in the matriarch. This is what it is. We'll take care of it. It's not a big deal. Let me go serve my man. Now, I just wanted to point out, let's say Oprah for a second. We know that Oprah married Stedman how many years ago? I think.
They ain't married. Oprah ain't married. Never marrying that.
Okay,
man.
well then let's just say, but you
He
know,
got his own outhouse in the back.
right. But I mean, if you look at it from Oprah, she has always been Oprah. But like people would laugh and be like, Stedman, like his name is Oprah's husband or whatever it was. Now, I actually recently looked into Stedman and found out that Stedman actually came for money. He's got a degree, he's got education, but honestly, she has him just playing with little toys back there. And you know what? No disrespect to him, but it's kind of like he's out there making, like he does like a training session, he does some educational stuff, but nobody sees him. She keeps her life very private and she makes it about her. So what she's actually saying, those women are saying, is yeah, well, we have men, we got our needs met. We don't need them to be bigger than us, and that's okay. So I think that's the standpoint that Iyanla was trying to come from, like you said, in a conversation with somebody that's not what she's looking for. That's not like women like her are looking for. So again, the conversation was mismatched.
But yeah, and the conversation never lands on. And I'm gonna say it. Yeah, we can hear you. Was your mic off? You trying to say something?
I think I was.
Okay. What you gotta say?
Would this be an argument if Ebony was not a woman of color? If you take two,
no,
that's what I'm saying.
No,
like,
it wouldn't have. That question wouldn't have even conceived in her mind.
Right, but Amanda, let's go one step further because I'm gonna tell you this much right now. White women who make money don't give a fuck about it. They are in Jamaica looking for poor black men to find to go and do things with. Like, and this is, I'm just gonna be very real. A lot of times people don't understand, even with those passport bros, they're looking for their own soft life. They assume that if they go to the Philippines, that's what they're gonna get. They are looking for what they think is lack of stress, and they get to just be the muscle. But I'll tell you this much right now. They over there with lots of problems, especially like they trying to what? They don't even want to integrate into the society that's there. So really what they're trying to do is bring the woman over here. And guess what usually happens? She stays with him long enough and then she figures out how to get her green card. Then she leaves. They don't want to talk about that. But anyway, but I'm saying like white women are not necessarily having these conversations because guess what? Just like the white men that don't care for American women and then get their passports and go and find people in these other countries, white women move like that too. But guess what? Rich white men don't typically like rich white women. They don't like them either. You know what I'm saying? Because white men don't like white women in power. They don't like it either. The conversations aren't happening.
My issue with the way that the clip goes is that Ebony wasn't, again, speaking specifically about the Black community, and somehow this turns into a Black community conversation.
Yeah.
Now, I've watched Ebony on TV. I know what her stats and stuff look like. For her to respond in the manner that she did to Iyanla made sense to me, nor was I offended by that woman feeling that type of way. But then it's like, that's the reason why Black women, can't never get ahead because their expectations are too high. But we have men who go out here and find women who are not Black, who let them be stay-at-home dads, and they live the soft feminine life that they want to live. I think if you would have taken Ebony's resume and put a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman on it next to Iyanla, like you said, this wouldn't have been a conversation. I feel like this was only a conversation.
Can I also say something though?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I feel like even before that probably wouldn't even be a conversation because a woman in her position would probably already be coupled with someone that she was on par with.
Who, you mean the white lady?
I hope that's not the white lady would have already been coupled with somebody.
But that's the thing okay, so I don't have any facts like here, statistics, but
we're just speculating. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah, I know we're just speculating, but I'm going to venture to say based on the information that I know that, like I said, white women can exist where they have money, but when they are with white men, which we know that those white women are typically with alpha white males, they have to, it's like Melania. Okay. Like, let's just use her
so sad. She's so depressed.
You know what?
Girl,
but this is the thing.
Free Melania.
Right. Well, that's the thing. We say stuff like that, but let's keep it a stack. There's a Black woman on TikTok right now who has actually spoken to women and said, listen, as somebody who dates outside of the race spectrum, dates on the race spectrum and also dates men with money, there's a violence with white men and white women that you guys don't see. So you think doesn't exist. But white men have a level of power with the more wealthier they get that is actually very scary. And so she said to Black women, if you're going to date out to a wealthy white man, be careful, because white women are not telling you what's happening. So the thing is that to think that just on point that, oh, you know, she would already have found somebody. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into a white woman who actually has her own money in order for her to be with a wealthy white man. We just don't see or hear these conversations because guess what? Black people being on display is entertainment for everybody. It's not really that funny when it happens to a white woman because that's when tears happen. And then all of a sudden it's coddle, coddle, coddle. Black women don't get that. So the reality is that Ebony ended up getting attacked because Ebony said something that is very accurate for her, but something that people do not want to accept because, again, Black women are doing things that almost historically other races of women have not been able to do. White women get money by proximity and by privilege. A lot of them have not worked their fingers to the bones in order to make the money that they have. You get what I'm saying? But Black women have.
I will also say, to add into that, a white woman in her position got there because of the family she came from. She didn't have to work her way to get a law degree and get on TV. She knew she was expected to go to this school, whether it be an Ivy League or a legacy school that her family went to, whether it be in the Middle East, not the Middle East, the Middle America. They have been expected. This has been an expectation for them. So how a woman got to where Ebony would be if she were a white woman would look totally different, if that makes sense as well.
No,
and I think that her husband would be a part of that package deal, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like the family's got to maintain their familial wealth and shit. So that's for me, in my thinking of being around a whole bunch of white people, that's usually how it go anyway. She probably wouldn't be married for love or actually like the man or not. She would just be coupled to maintain the power and the finances.
There you go, sis. Like,
but it's also a layer because for me, it's like, and I guess this is the Black woman in me, right? Even if the person I'm with works in public anything, right? Or as a teacher. Because I myself went to law school with the expectation that I would either be a public defender or work at a legal aid. That was like my goal, right? But it's something to be said about a person that has worked to obtain the level of education that I have.
Yep.
Right? Like there's a certain drive, a certain level of commitment, a certain level of ambition and intellect and stuff that would have to go into that. So I think that's another layer for Black women. A lot of us, the majority of us, aren't just going to college just because that's what our family does and you have to have a degree because that's what the family does and you're making the family look bad. But we go to get these degrees because we're advancing ourselves, we're advancing our families. Why should I date a man who doesn't have that same get up and go as me?
Absolutely.
Why would I want, even if he is a bus driver, if he didn't take the time to go to college or study hard for something, like
exactly.
Why should I have to take all the low income and also the low expectation? Like, because if I were to go into legal aid, I wouldn't be making nothing. Right. But like, there were certain things that I had to go through to get to that position, even if the pay for me is low. So it's like, why would I, as a Black woman, want to spend this much time and energy investing into myself? Oh, like money aside, investing into bettering myself and then expect that the person I'm with not do the same, regardless of money?
Absolutely. I want to also say too that, again, there is this weird myth that, you know, dating outside is going to be the cure sometimes. And I'm not saying everybody believes that, but sometimes that is what people think. And I'm going to tell you right now, having half of my family that is white, having primarily uncles who, if you guys met, they're the nice white people, you know, but the reality is they treat their wives like doo-doo, okay? And the thing is that the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, like I'll just give you one primary example. Like, I heard my uncle yell at his wife one time. Like, and I don't want to say any names, so I'm just gonna make that name. Like he was like, I'm just gonna say Samantha. Get out of here. Just get back there. And I was thinking to myself, like, and she was like, why are you talking to me like that, Anthony? Like, you know what I'm saying? And like, she was like, and then she went into the kitchen, and then another one of them was just like, are you okay? In my mind, I'm watching this interaction go down, and I'm like, that would have looked so different if it was a sister. She was like, who the fuck you talking to? You know what I'm saying? So I say all of that to say, I watch how they're being treated, and my uncles have money. They have money, and each of their wives still work. But I promise you, what can't be seen in the forefront, like these knuckleheaded Black men that want to get on the forefront and be like, hey guys, I want to announce every grievance that a Black woman has ever done. White men and white women are not necessarily doing that, but behind the scenes, it's really not the way that people think it is. So I say all that to say, again, I'm going to stand behind Ebony's right to choose what is best for her, because in her particular situation, that's what does make sense. For her to be with a man who makes lower money than her, I'm going to tell you what probably the bigger problem is. Even if she found a man that had a great personality, he would be jealous of her. Okay. And you know what? And that resentment would end up putting her in a position where she might be unalived, or she would have to get away, because we see some of the videos of men with at a lower rate than some of the Black women who are making money. And we have seen them been unalived. Okay. Because of that resentment and jealousy. So that is one of the things that I actually struggle with, thinking to myself as a woman who makes money, you know, do I feel safe dating someone who doesn't, because again, of that resentment. But outside of that, I think it is important for some of us to at least consider, are we looking for money, or are we looking for stability? And if we're looking for stability, does that have a number? And if that there's a number that goes with it, what is that number? And is that number reasonable? So let's say 70, 80,000. I think that's sufficient, okay, for somebody who might be making, like you said, relative money. You're in each other's tax bracket. But still, if he doesn't have the personality that you want, don't date him. You know what I'm saying? Don't date him just because he has money. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of where I was like, I think that's what some people were getting upset, because they were making it seem like she was being judgmental of people's personalities if they didn't have money, which is not what she was doing, but that's what people were thinking she was doing.
Well, see, that's frustrating, because she was specifically asked, would you date a bus driver? And she said,
Right.
if he owns the bus. I think people forget that it's not just a career or a title. There's things that go into that.
Yep.
Right. And then there's also the portion of like, okay, she's this woman with this show. What's going to happen when she takes this bus driver to her company events or to a red carpet event? Like those things matter, because for her life, that's what she does. Right.
And
So it's just like,
and let me speak on it as a person who has degrees, that is married to a person who doesn't have a degree, that works in blue collar. That man works hard. That man works hard, and that man isn't jealous of me. He was at my graduation when I graduated in undergrad. He was there at graduate school. I actually has his name. His name is on that degree.
her.
And when I become a doctor, his name follows that doctor. And not once has he ever been like, oh, you choose school over me. Oh, you think because you make a little bit more money than me that you're better than me. He's never thought that. In fact, when I'm like, I just want to quit the program because the program is difficult as I don't know what, he's like, what we don't do is quit. Not my wife. We're going to get this degree. It's always a we. It's not a, oh, this is what you signed up for. So if you wanted to be Miss Doctor this, then you need to go ahead and do whatever you need to do. And that's what, and like you said, that's what she was trying to convey when she said, I would date the owner of the bus. Meaning, I know that he's going to have a crazy schedule and our schedules are going to conflict. There's no way that I can ask him to go on a red carpet event when he's working overnights or he has to get up first thing in the morning to get ready to do a route. Like, she's not looking at it in the sense like he's beneath me. She's looking at the sense of how will we ever spend time together?
That's interesting you're saying that, Ari, because that and I'm not saying that that's not actually a good thought to it, but nobody that I heard that had an opinion brought even that angle in. Like, and
they're not being fucking for real.
Yeah, like, no, but even for me, it never occurred to me that, and again, I will be the first person to tell you that, excuse me, I don't particularly like dating somebody who works for someone. Okay. Because I like to be the kind of person, like, if I'm sitting here today and I blink too fast, I'm like, I'm going to Coco, Turks and Caicos. Okay. Who coming with me? That is literally my personality. Now, like I said, it's hard to do that when you are dealing with somebody who has a steady job that only gets a certain amount of vacation, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't even think about it that way, even though, like I said, I think that's a legitimate argument. I just took it that what people perceived from her was the way that you just described your husband, that you have a husband who is a blue collar worker, but he's a damn hard worker. So people are registering, well, if I'm a hard worker and I've got a good personality, she wouldn't date me unless I own the bus, because she thinks that because I don't have the money she wants, I'm ineligible. That's how I felt they read that interaction. Even though, if, like you said, maybe that wasn't even what she was trying to convey, but I think that's how some people received it.
Right. I just think that people don't like her personality. She has a personality like me, which is like, I'm just going to say it, like, it is what it is. Like, you're not going to change my mind. Look at her face when Iyanla is going to town on our expectations as Black women. She's like, but I said it. What do you want me to do? Like, I'm not changing it. Like, oh, okay, so what? Like, what?
Look, that response to the llama stand 10 toes down. She been doing her media term. Like, I said what the fuck I said.
But let's be
Look,
honest.
I love to see it. I love to see it.
The men speaking on this situation know that they would not obtain the level of caliber to even be with a woman like Ebony. So the reason that a lot of people, I feel, took offense to it is because where Ebony is, like Fact said, there's not a lot of women that are at that level. However, how are you offended by her preference or her boundary for herself? It became, we're going to attack her because she won't settle for less. That's how, at least when I watched it, I was like, what does the bus driver have to do with what she said? And why would she date a bus driver if, okay. Because the first time I saw it, I was like, my brain can't compute, delete, exit. I was like, I'll revisit it at a later time because somebody going to say something about it. It wasn't a situation where when you go back and you look at it now, I wouldn't expect Ebony to date somebody that works for Jeff Bezos. Like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't equate. Because then if she ends up in a situation where she dated somebody that was not on that same level financially and their relationship don't work, the men never raise hell about men getting alimony. It's only if a man has to pay a woman. Like, she would have got ran through the community regardless, in my opinion. Like, oh, well, you need to stop for this because he might have a good character. But Iyanla said, Iyanla, I never say her name right. Iyanla, okay, whatever.
Somebody's mama.
Somebody's
mama. But she didn't say she'd marry one. She didn't say that she would stay with one. Oh, y'all are great people. Yeah. So that, to me, that came across as, I would date this person. They're a good time, but Iyanla has been divorced 3 times at this point.
Ooh. Right. Okay. You guys know who that Sparkle lady is?
Who, the Sparkle?
Sprinkle. Let me tell you something. I ain't love somebody so much in my life that I disagree with. Okay. I just love that lady. Like, there's something about her personality that I'm always like, yes. Even though, like I said, some of the stuff she says I don't agree with, but she said something the other day that I just want to say reminds me of what we're talking about. She said, you know, people will be lying, guys will be lying. They'll be saying just about anything when they're in survival mode. Okay. And I feel like, again, the reason why the Black men and DJ Envy and people responded the way that they did is because, like I said, she attacked something in them that they feel insecure about. If they were secure about who they were and about who they date, they would not give a fudge, okay? They would just move on. We know what it looks like to be a confident brother. We've seen those guys and the women that they're with. You know what I'm saying? We see the kind of things that they embody. The ones that are complaining are the ones that are the total opposite. Like, y'all started with this conversation, DJ Envy and Charlemagne. Like, who are you guys? You don't even treat your own women nice. You're already excluded from the conversation, but here you are with opinions. You know what I'm saying? So it's too many people talking in situations about stuff that don't even pertain to them. Iyanla and that woman, they may both be lawyers, and they both have their own opinions. But what they're talking about is not even relative to one another. They're separate people.
And that's why I divest from that TikTok conversation that we keep having every other week. Because when are we going to talk about something else? Because y'all obviously don't agree. So just agree to disagree.
I mean, it would have
the
been
next topic.
a great conversation if they had got into the stats. Because when she was on the Breakfast Club, she said, I sent y'all some bar graphs. I think it was that bar graph. I think it had like a breakdown of ethnicity and gender, or the different ethnicities of America. And I think there was like 20 different lines, and the black line was at the very bottom. And she was like, we need to talk about why we're so comfortable being the permanent underclass. I'm like, we could talk about like, but we don't like dealing with facts and what it really is. Because at the end of the day, no matter how anyone feels about what she said, we are the underclass currently. Socioeconomically, education wise, home ownership, like we come in last for all of that. So why are you
women
trying
can't do
to
it alone
force?
sometimes? We're trying, but we can't do it by ourselves.
I think that's the thing. Is like we can't do it by ourselves. And that goes back to what I was saying about how black women are growing at a rate that's disproportionate to the black men in our community. How, unless we're going to actually be like, okay, cool, we're the matriarchs, y'all the stay-at-home pappies, and they fall in line, what else do you want us to do?
Exactly. And you know
I
what?
mean, I one for one vote for either you open your options, whatever that means for you, or you be okay with being single. Because if you're going to be race loyal and you want a man that's going to be on par with you, we already see the stats that the more the black men make, the less likely they are to get married, period.
Right. I can say this. My husband's going to retire way before I do. And do you think I'm going to care about having to go and get up and keep getting a check? Absolutely not. You go ahead, hun. You stay home. You already cooking anyway. So
exactly.
But see, that's not the norm, though. The black women are fighting to have patriarchs, and the black men are fighting to be labeled patriarchs without actually doing what patriarchs do. There's a disconnect.
Right. Well, you know what? But you know what? Let me just say this. The reason why I still think there are some women in our community, whether you want to call them the Pygmishas or whether you want to call them I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I think divestors a lot of times uphold patriarchy. But regardless of what, I think the part that's missing is that it's not even that they mean to uphold patriarchy. It's the fact that, again, they want to compete in capitalism. They want to have this money because we have been told so much that Black people's value is rooted in dollars. We keep being told that because we are welfare bums or because we're not making this kind of money because of this money, that this is the reason why our communities are the way they are. This is the reason why we can't get ahead. We're our own worst enemies. My goodness. Sometimes I feel like asking people, like, do you even read before you start talking on things?
You know they don't.
For me, it's a lot because, like, again, there's moving pieces. Like we can talk about capitalism and white supremacy, but we can't ignore that these things, capitalism, patriarchy, and white supremacy, they all intermingle at times as well. So my whole thing is that I want for those women to find the men that they want to be with, because if you are heterosexual, it's a struggle out here for a lot of people. But when it comes to Black women, if there's something that I could tell sisters and really mean it from the bottom of my heart, is to just tell them that, you know what, sis, you're okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need to just settle with somebody. And I'm telling myself that you don't need to settle. Because at the end of the day, I realized one thing, and Sprinkle said this the other day. Men don't usually say no. Okay. If they like, it does, like right now, any one of us could be outside and a guy could come to us and be like, want to have, you know what? And we're going to be like, ew, no. But if all four of us said that to four different random guys that we don't know, even if they hated plus size women, they'd still be like, all right, come around the back. Okay? Because they're fleshly. They're fleshly people. And let's be real. I think what Black men more specifically are upset with Black women is because, like I said, they are watching us have hurdles and we're getting over them in a way that for some reason, some of them are just not. You know what I'm saying? These stumbling blocks, it's like that guy that came out, I think yesterday or today or whatever, that I don't know, kind of sellout Black guy. And he was like, where are the leaders? Where's Black Lives Matter with the shootings in Chicago? And I'm like, I'm sorry. The last time I checked, the people shooting each other, if you want to get technical, look like you. Why are you here talking? Why are you not out on the street trying to fix that, you coward? Okay.
Well,
You want Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter was started and is maintained by Black women. So why do you want us to go out there and do your job? Why don't you get off your ass?
Again, Black Lives Matter has absolutely nothing to do with race on race. Black on Black crime. It doesn't. It has everything to do with police brutality towards unarmed Black people. That is what that's for. So you're asking an organization to do a job that is not in their scope.
Yeah, but you guys already know this. Even with some of the issues that were legitimately launched, because it's an organization and it's not perfect. The real issue that Black Lives Matter got the smoke that they did is because, number one, it was founded by Black women, okay? And then it got so big, and half of it was mostly the movement, which really wasn't even the organization. But when the organization started collecting money, a lot of Black men were upset because they feel like, well, wait a second, you took our initiative and you made money from it. You're a scammer. Like, they will attack Black women who are doing the things that they feel they're entitled to do. And it's like, well, then why didn't you do it? Oh, now they ain't doing it. But they want to have their comfy platforms sitting in their mama's garage, you know what I'm saying? Trying to tell us, what about Black on Black crime? Okay, sir, but again, why don't you just go and why don't you take your All Lives Matter friends, and why don't you guys go start an organization to deal with the crime in Chicago? Because if it's not about race, then it should just be about everybody at this point. But anyway, I said all that to say, I'm digressing, but it honestly, I think, is an internal resentment that they genuinely feel like they watch Black women, and Black women are like, okay, I got kicked down, but let me get up. And they get kicked down and they get up again. And they get kicked down and they get up again. And these Black men get kicked down one time and they're like, losing their mind, but not doing anything to fix it. There's an internal resentment.
Well, it's just like when you brought up the Black Lives Movement conversation, it's just like the conversation that I've had on TikTok when it came down to Christian in Florida. And Tanya TKO on YouTube was able to get like behind the scenes stuff where it showed that Christian was an abused man. He was a battered man. And somebody on my TikTok, somebody's son decided to be like, well, why weren't y'all out there fighting for him? I was like, that's y'all's homie. Why wouldn't y'all out there fight for him? I said, he was a battered man. I said, that woman used racial derogatory terms against that man. I said, and then she used her tears to try to weaponize the police against him before she unalived him. I said, but that was his preference. So why didn't y'all go down there and hold her accountable? I don't understand why y'all still standing here. Ain't nobody took their cricket and went and made t-shirts to go fight for your boy Christian. It's the same thing. They're never going to step up and do the whole Black Lives Matter thing, because then at some point in time, they would actually have to do the work instead of complaining about what Black women ain't doing. Well, Black women ain't doing this, so what are y'all going to do, leaders and protectors? Like, y'all are not even getting there. Y'all too busy working on your mama's Wi-Fi to fuss at us about what we not doing. Like, bringing up Black Lives Matter is your demographic that's unaliving each other. I brought up when Takeoff was unalived in Texas. I said, what does those conversations look like for Black men and faces on how you guys protect yourselves? Did I get one Black man in the comment? No, all Black women. So
well, you know, Coco,
taking it back to the taking it back.
Yeah, would you Coco and I tried to do a study on my live one time, and
they are not serious. But it's like, you know, as a Black woman that has interest in community, is that something that you expect of the man that you're with? And should it be?
Sorry, I expect what? For them to
be involved in community, to be, however that means. Are you volunteering at a shelter, or giving back with food? Are you volunteering with young boys? Something.
Right. Yep. I would like to say for myself that I personally like to date people who are a little more socialist in their behaviors as well. So a lot of times I end up dating guys who do the whole homeless or unhoused, events. But I'm going to be very honest. For me being the type of pro-Black woman that I am, even when I'm dating Black guys, I don't find them very race loyal. Okay. So there's that part of it. But I would like to also say, being able to see some of the contrast in comparison to other races of men, they might date intraracially, but they're not doing anything for their women collectively either. So the reality is that, again, a white woman was on TikTok the other day basically saying, this is why we are jealous of Black women. In connection to, again, the theory of why Black women are constantly being put down is because the world knows the power that Black women literally possess collectively. And anytime somebody is afraid, they try to kill the threat. So I say all of that to say, we have to be mindful of this when we are dating, because the targets against Black women, even more specifically monoracial women who may be darker skinned, okay? Because they have, and again, not saying that it's impossible to happen to me, but I understand too that there are guys who will date me off the strength that I'm lighter skinned because they want that proximity. It happens. It's not about me being better looking as a biracial. It's just sometimes that internalized self-hatred that they have, that they will then come to me and say very negative things, which I make sure to cut it off. But we have to be very diligent in our vetting, regardless of the race of the man that we are with, because if you are a strong woman with a strong personality, you are going to, for men anyway, you have to be mindful because some of them, again, have these almost like primal urges, like I said, to kind of want to kill what they can't compete with, is what I'm saying. So that to me is why we need to vet, because it doesn't even matter the race of the man. There are just certain things biologically. So can I just shift very quickly into something I said earlier? Men telling us things and us not believing them, okay? When a man looks at me and tells me that he is looking for a submissive woman, I'm not having a conversation with you because we already determined that you require a woman to be a certain way in order for you to feel powerful. That's not the kind of guy that I'm dating. So I would like to say to some women who, again, have been conditioned, because I'm going to say the people that I've found, Black women who have been conditioned this way, typically are women that I've either known from the church, whether it's they're Muslim or they're Christians. They've been taught that that's what they're supposed to do. I'm not saying all Black women who are in the church believe that, but many of them are indoctrinated that way. Or again, women that have come from abusive households. I would like to, again, and me as well, to inspire some of them to just step back and just think, you may want this from a type of man. You may want to be the one who lets him, again, have the muscle, but at what expense? That should always be our question. At what expense? You can be a submissive wife, but at what cost? You know what I'm saying? Is he stifling your voice? Well, yeah, I guess it wouldn't be a problem if you don't want to be heard, but I think everybody wants to be heard. You know what I'm saying? I think internally, everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. So if we are dating and that is the expectation, we can't see a man who's showing us he has no emotional availability and trying to still date him, hoping that that's going to happen. I think we have to start being like, you know what? I've tried to communicate with him in the early stages and it's not happening. It's time for me to go. When we see it, believe it, and do the things that we need to do to move away. And if what's keeping us there is that we're not feeling confident within ourselves, then like Coco said earlier, maybe we are not in a position to date right now. Maybe we need to go and seek therapy and heal our inner wounds so that we can come to the table in a way where what we bring forward, we're going to find the right person who wants it back, rather than trying to fit our square peg into their circle of a hole. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm at in terms of, like I said, setting expectations and listening to what they are saying. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news with my theory, but this whole not all men thing, I'm just going to say that I think there's a far more negative men than there is positive ones. And I think that's where some of us get stuck, because I think we are trying to date thinking, sorry guys, I'm like tripping over my words. What's the opposite of pessimistic, guys? I can't even think today.
Optimistic.
There you go. Thank you. I think we walk into dating optimistic, thinking that we're gonna find a good man, But I think the way we've been socialized, we haven't been able to figure out some of their tells right away. And we don't always read the room because, again, we get excited when we find somebody that we really like. But the truth of the matter is I do think that there's a lot more men that are negative than there is positive, not necessarily because they're all bad men, but because of how they are socialized. And where we see this, and I'm going to go to Amanda because she mentioned it earlier, you see this when you find somebody putting positive things out about Black men, but the comment section is riddled with just women. But when you see things that we find negative by Black men, the comment sections and those guys are like riddled. Like you can go to Andrew Tate or Kevin Samuels and see thousands and thousands and thousands of men. But you find a good Black man who's actually giving practical advice, and you've got like 3 Black men and like a whole thing of women. So if we're seeing that, then we have to understand that men are actually more interested in what Kevin and Andrew are saying. So if that's the case, then we have to accept that there's probably far more of those guys than there is of the ones that following the guys we do like. We got to protect ourselves because they're not going to do it for us.
Lord, all right, y'all. I like to end in inspiring the girls. So say something. Oh, not me going blurry, honey. Ooh. Say something to inspire your fellow sis in her endeavors in getting to know herself and finding what her standards and boundaries, expectations are, and going with God, because it's really the Hunger Games out there. I'm sorry to tell y'all. Who would like to go first?
Who has piss in it, bro? Like, I'm telling you. It's Philippines.
They probably got piss, Hennessy, Casamigos, a few tampons.
Okay, really?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I had to. Like, oh my God, not the Casamigos.
Any inspiring, uplifting words, or y'all just over it? Like y'all been just go with God and that's it.
I'm gonna say this based off of my own thought process, especially when it comes down to the clock app. At a certain point in time, we all have to get into a space where we're being like-minded about what our intentions are. And there's going to end up being a lot of us that have to grieve the idea of what we thought our lives would look like, be it be with Black men or just relationship statuses in general. And everybody does need to kind of, protect yourself and do what's in the best interest of you. But it's also okay to sit with yourself and figure out what that looks like. And also not arguing with them women's sons on TikTok because I was cussing out somebody's son every 3 days. So it's just like, don't disrupt your mental state or your peace trying to argue with somebody who has made it their mission to not try to understand you to begin with.
Good, sis. I like that.
Who's going next?
All right, okay. I'll go then, I guess. I would like to say that we need to operate again more like elephants and orcas. Okay, not zebras. All right. And the reason why is, and I'm going to give a reference. So when an elephant, which they call cows, interestingly enough, the females, when an elephant is looking to mate, she stomps her foot. Okay. And literally the vibration goes through the ground. And then all of these, they call them bulls too. All of the male elephants, they start to come, but she picks who she wants for her offspring. They don't choose her. She chooses them. Okay. So the ones that aren't picked, they have to carry along when she has, she gets pregnant and then she carries on with her matriarch. And I feel like that's the energy that we have to start coming with. That guy Anwar said it. We need to stop feeling like we're interns and we're trying to apply for a job. At the end of the day, we need to act like we're Harvard. Low admission rates. We get to choose who comes here. Because I don't care what anybody says. We are the prize. Whether you are somebody who is a birther or if you are just, again, a non-binary or maybe even cis hetero, whatever it is, if you were born female, you are, or whatever it is on the spectrum, you have something that the males do not have. Okay. You have literally the ability to give life. You have the ability to think and respond intuitively. We have the ability to communicate even without verbal words. And a lot of times what we embody as women is the ability, again, to care and to nurture the right people. So at the end of the day, we have to really recognize and celebrate our strengths and stop feeling like we need them to validate us. When we go into relationships, you don't come in 50-50, you come in 100%. But you don't give that 100% of yourself to somebody who's only going to be willing to give you 50%. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say, if you can't feel like that from the onset, please go to therapy. Not because I'm trying to say anybody's crazy, but because therapy can be, again, very therapeutic, and it can help you work through some of the things that you don't even recognize about yourself so that you can feel confident when you are now going to try not to jump headfirst into the pool with all of the stuff in it, but you're going to try to look for somebody who matches you. Even if your dating pool consists of 2 people, you will feel confident. And on a last note, also don't be afraid to batch date, meaning people do not have to date exclusively. In fact, sometimes it's probably not the best idea to just date one person. I'm not saying it's bad to do that, but know that you can have options. Know that you should be able to exercise those options so that way you can choose who you want to be with and you have something to contrast. Don't let society continue to tell you that you have to live and act and behave a certain way. So at the end of the day, we're all unique. Whether you're a mass presenting woman, whether again you're a non-binary, he, she, they, if you're same gender loving, or again you are heterosexual, or maybe you're pansexual, or you're asexual, feel good within yourself before you worry about how other people see you. That's honestly my best give right now, because I feel like part of the biggest issue for women is that we're constantly feeling judged and not knowing how to navigate around those opinions. That would be mine.
What you got, Ari?
Okay, I wanted to go last because I was waiting to see what
Oh.
everybody else said, because my
Oh.
opinion would be the most simple, but hopefully it could seem impactful. Um, we got to learn how to love that little person that's inside of us that never truly got the opportunity to feel what genuine love was before we think that we can go out and find someone that will love us the way that we needed to be loved as a child. Um, Also, speaking as a person that's married, I mean, marriage is fun, but then you find out a lot of the tax breaks you used to get when you were single, you don't get anymore. So embrace being single. I wanted to lighten it up a little bit. That's why I said that. But embrace being single, because that singleness allows you to understand who you are as a person. Because some of us are going into relationships not even knowing who we are. So we get wrapped up in being somebody's mama, somebody's wife, somebody's girlfriend, and we never truly know who we were as an individual standing alone by ourselves. So learn to love that little person inside of you. Learn to love singleness, because that gives you the opportunity to grow and become the person that you're looking to be. And then when that time comes, you'll know when it's there to reach out and find that special someone, and they will meet you at your needs and your expectations, because you have already set that foundation for yourself to not settle for anything other than that.
Her. I was just gonna add, as the other married person on here, shit's hard. Okay,
Very.
marriage is hard. Having a healthy marriage is harder. You're going to make your load harder if you're not checking if you're compatible with the person that you're in relationship with. So I encourage you to do the self work. I'm a firm believer marriage is one big trigger for self work. Okay. Every day it's gonna be something you gotta check up on yourself in. And if you're not with the person that you deem worth it through them giving you what you desire in a relationship and you being equally yoked with that person, it's gonna make it a lot harder, and you're gonna waste time. I would rather be single working on myself than to be partnered with the wrong person because I wanted the relationship without considering what I'm getting. Is it good for me? Is it good for that person? Do we work well with each other? So do the work. I mean, I don't know what else to tell y'all. Do the work. With that being said, I'm gonna see y'all on Patreon this week. We're gonna kiki about opening up our options. I think throughout this conversation, I'm gonna have the live be public. So if y'all want to slide through, it'll probably be either Wednesday or Thursday. I'll post it. It's gonna be a little late night too, a little bit. We're gonna get a little late night, a little zhuzh. So I'll have that be public for the live, and then I'll probably put it back on the tiers for the playback. But yeah, we're gonna talk about it because I don't know where y'all got this. We're gonna stop dating black men and jump straight to white men kind of thing. I think we skipped a few steps.
Right.
So
let's try a homeboy that got a sprinkle of both in them first. Let's do the sprinkle of both, and then maybe.
Listen, don't even get me started about these biracial boys. Jeez. God.
As long as they mama black.